The call came at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday that should have been ordinary. Elena Vale's hands trembled as the school nurse's voice crackled through the phone. "Your son collapsed. The ambulance is on the way." 8 years of careful disappearance, of constructed safety, of believing silence could protect them. All of it shattered in the time it took her heart to stop. She didn't know yet that Adrian's blood held a secret even she couldn't fix. She didn't know that saving him would require calling the one man she'd spent nearly a decade hiding from. The man who didn't know he had a son. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, hit that like button and drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story reaches. Now, let's begin. The classroom still smelled like crayons and hand sanitizer when Adrian Vale hit the ground. One moment, he'd been laughing with the other third graders during recess, his dark hair falling into eyes that were too serious for 8 years old. The next, his knees buckled, and the playground tilted sideways. His teacher, Mrs. Chen, caught him before his head struck the asphalt, but she couldn't catch the way his lips turned gray or the shallow rasp that replaced his breathing. "Call 911, she screamed, cradling him against her chest. "Someone call 911. Adrian's eyes rolled back and the world went quiet, except for the thunder of his teacher's heart against his ear. Elena was organizing medical files when her phone rang. She'd been a hospital administrator for 3 years now. Different hospital, different city, different name on her ID badge. Elena Vale, not Elena Moravsky. Never that name again. She almost didn't answer. Unknown number. But something cold settled in her stomach, some maternal instinct that bypassed logic. "Ms. Vale?" The voice was professionally calm, but Elena heard the tremor underneath. "This is Nurse Patterson from Riverside Elementary. Your son had an incident during recess. He's unconscious. The paramedics are with him now." The phone slipped through Elena's fingers. She caught it on the second ring, her administrative training kicking in even as her world fractured. "What kind of incident? Is he breathing? What happened?" "He collapsed. No apparent injury, no impact. He just went down. They're taking him to St. Catherine's Memorial. You should meet them there." Elena was already running. St. Catherine's emergency room smelled like antiseptic and fear. Elena burst through the doors at 3:19 p.m., her sensible heels abandoned somewhere in the parking lot, her breath coming in sharp gasps that had nothing to do with the sprint from her car. "Adrian Vale," she managed, gripping the reception desk. 8 years old, ambulance brought him in. Where is he? The receptionist's fingers flew across her keyboard, but not fast enough. Not nearly fast enough. "Trauma Bay 3. Through those doors, second on your..." Elena was already moving. She found him surrounded by people in scrubs, small and pale against white sheets, an oxygen mask covering half his face. Monitors beeped in discordant rhythm. An IV line snaked into his arm, pumping fluids that seemed to disappear into his small body without effect. "Adrian," his name broke on her tongue. "Baby, I'm here, Mama's here." "Ma'am, you need to step back." A nurse, young, efficient, kind-eyed, guided her gently but firmly toward the wall. "Let them work." "What's wrong with him? What happened?" "They're running tests now. The doctor will speak with you as soon as..." "I'm a hospital administrator." Elena's voice sharpened into something professional, something that couldn't shake apart. "I understand triage protocols. I need to know what you're seeing." The nurse hesitated, then seemed to recognize a mother who would break without information. "Severe anemia. His hemoglobin is critically low. They're checking for internal bleeding, but there's no sign of trauma. Dr. Reeves is ordering a full panel." Internal bleeding, hemoglobin, critical. Words that meant everything and nothing. Elena watched her son's chest rise and fall, each breath a small victory, and tried to remember how to breathe herself. Dr. Sarah Reeves had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and the sort of calm that came from 20 years in emergency medicine. She found Elena in the waiting room 2 hours later, after Adrian had been moved to the ICU, after the tests had come back, after the world had shifted onto an axis Elena didn't recognize. "Ms. Vale." Dr. Reeves sat beside her, not across from her. That was the first bad sign. Adrian's stable for now. We've given him a transfusion, and his numbers are improving. For now. Elena latched onto those words. What does that mean? What's wrong with him? The blood work shows markers consistent with a rare genetic blood disorder. We're waiting on confirmation from the specialist, but the preliminary results suggest aplastic anemia with an aggressive presentation. The words landed like physical blows. Aplastic anemia. Elena's medical knowledge, absorbed through years of administrative work, supplied the definition she didn't want. His bone marrow isn't producing blood cells. In Adrian's case, it appears to be a severe inherited form. Without treatment, Dr. Reeves paused, choosing her words with visible care. Without treatment, his prognosis is poor. But there are options. Bone marrow transplant is the most effective treatment for cases like this. Then we do the transplant, today, now, whatever it takes. It's not that simple. We need a compatible donor. The best matches typically come from immediate family. Siblings have the highest compatibility rate, but I understand Adrian is an only child? Yes. Elena's throat closed around the word. Then we'll test you first. Parents have about a 30% chance of being a match. If you're not compatible, we can check extended family, then move to the National Registry. We'll find a match, Ms. Vale. The odds are in our favor. But Elena had learned long ago that odds meant nothing when the universe had already decided. They drew her blood that evening. Efficient nurses with gentle hands and encouraging smiles, telling her about success stories, about miracle matches, about children who went on to live full, healthy lives. Elena nodded and smiled and let them hope for her. Because she already knew. She'd spent 8 years building a life on secrets and silence. She'd believed that distance was protection, that absence was love, that some truths were too dangerous to speak. Adrian had her eyes, dark and almond-shaped, catching light like polished stones. He had her grandmother's smile, crooked on the left side. He had her stubbornness, her quick mind, her tendency to hum when he concentrated. But he had his father's blood type, a B negative. Rare, specific. She'd checked when he was born, alone in a different hospital in a different state, holding her newborn son and memorizing every detail that connected him to a man who would never know he existed. The paternity had never been in question. There had only ever been one man. One night that turned into months, into something that felt like forever, into a future she'd almost believed in, until she learned what forever actually cost. The results came back 36 hours later. Elena sat in a small consultation room with industrial carpet and motivational posters about courage and hope, and watched Dr. Reeves try to find a gentle way to deliver the news. You're not a match, Ms. Vale. I'm sorry. Elena had prepared for this. She'd known. What about extended family? Dr. Reeves continued. Parents? Siblings? Even aunts, uncles, or cousins could potentially. My parents are dead. The lie came easily after 8 years of practice. Car accident when I was 23. No siblings. My grandparents passed before Adrian was born. There's no one. The father? Elena's hands clenched in her lap, nails biting into her palms. He's not in the picture. Ms. Vale. Dr. Reeves leaned forward, her professional mask slipping to show something more human underneath. Desperation, maybe. Or recognition of a mother standing at the edge of an impossible choice. I understand that family situations can be complicated, but Adrian's condition is severe. Without a compatible donor, we're looking at immunosuppressive therapy, which has limited long-term success in cases this aggressive. The National Registry is an option, but finding an unrelated match for his specific markers could take months. Months we may not have. What are you saying? I'm saying that biologically, his best chance is a first-degree relative. You're not compatible. If there's any possibility, any at all, that we could test the father, no. The word came out too sharp, too final. Dr. Reeves studied her with eyes that had seen too many families break apart in rooms exactly like this one. Ms. Vale, I'm not here to judge anyone's personal circumstances, but I need you to understand what we're facing. Adrian's bone marrow is failing. Every day his body produces fewer blood cells. The transfusion bought us time, but not much. If we don't find a donor soon, if we can't start the transplant process, how long? Elena's voice sounded distant to her own ears. If we don't find a match, how long does he have? The silence stretched too long. 6 months. Maybe less. 6 months. Less. Elena thought about Adrian's laugh, bright and surprised, like he'd just discovered something wonderful. She thought about the way he still held her hand when they crossed streets, even though he insisted he was too old for it. She thought about his drawings taped to their refrigerator, elaborate space battles, and impossible creatures signed in careful letters. Adrian Vale, age 8, not Adrian Volkov. Never that name. I need to think, she whispered. Of course, but Ms. Vale, don't think too long. Elena stood in the ICU watching her son sleep. They'd moved him to a private room, installed monitors that beeped reassurance into the antiseptic air. He looked smaller than 8 years old, fragile in a way that terrified her. His phone, cheap, prepaid, for emergencies only, buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it. The world outside this room had ceased to exist. There was only Adrian and the impossible mathematics of survival. 30% chance if she'd been compatible. She wasn't. Siblings would have been better. He had none. The father. First-degree relative, genetic match, the man she'd loved, the man she'd fled, the man who commanded an empire built on shadows and loyalty and violence so precise it never made the news. Marcus Volkov. She'd met him at a charity gala she'd been hired to coordinate. Benefit for children's literacy, champagne and silk, and people who confused wealth with virtue. He'd been standing alone near the silent auction, studying a first-edition Hemingway with more interest than he'd shown the elaborate dinner. The sun also rises, she'd said, because she'd read it in college and because something about his isolation had called to her own. Hemingway wrote it in 6 weeks. He'd looked up, gray eyes catching hers with an intensity that stole her breath. 8 weeks, he'd corrected, voice low and precise. He drafted it in 6, revised for 2 more. She should have walked away. Instead, she'd smiled. You know your Hemingway. I know what matters. 3 months later, he'd proposed. Quiet evening, no grand gesture, just the two of them in his apartment overlooking the city, and a ring that looked like starlight condensed into platinum and diamonds. Marry me, he'd said, not asked. Build something with me, something real. She'd said yes because she'd believed him, because in 3 months he'd never lied to her, never played games, never been anything but exactly who he was. Complicated, powerful, dangerous to his enemies and gentle with her in ways that made her forget why danger should matter. The wedding had been planned for April. Small ceremony, immediate family only. She'd been choosing flowers when the first message arrived. Congratulations on your engagement. How unfortunate it will be cut short. She'd thought it was spam. Deleted it. The second came 3 days later with a photo of her leaving Marcus's building. Time stamped. Recent. Beautiful dress. Pity you won't live to wear white. The third included her medical records. Recent appointment. Confirmation of pregnancy, 6 weeks along. 2 deaths are easier than 1. Accidents happen every day. She'd gone to Marcus. Of course she had. Shown him everything, terrified but trusting that together they could handle it. He'd made phone calls, mobilized security, promised protection. 2 nights later, her apartment building caught fire. Electrical fault, the investigators said. Pure accident. She'd been out at the time, dinner with a friend, alibi tight and irrelevant. But her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman who'd lived across the hall and always had cookies, hadn't been out. They found her body in the stairwell. Wrong apartment, right floor, close enough. Elena had understood then. This wasn't about Marcus's enemies making threat. This was about someone willing to kill anyone close to him, someone patient enough to make it look like accidents, someone who would keep trying until they got it right. She could have stayed. Let Marcus hunt them down with the resources and ruthlessness he commanded. Let him build walls around her until the threat was neutralized. But she'd been carrying Adrian. 6 weeks of cells dividing, of potential becoming real, of a future she hadn't planned but already loved. And she'd understood with absolute clarity, if she stayed, her son would either die in the crossfire or grow up in a fortress. Protected, yes, but never free. Never safe in the way that mattered. So she'd disappeared. Withdrew cash from an ATM Marcus didn't know about. Used a fake ID she'd obtained years ago for reasons she'd never examined too closely. Took a bus to a city she'd never mentioned, rented a room with cash, and vanished into the margins where people didn't ask questions. She'd left no note, no explanation. She'd simply ceased to exist. For 8 years, she'd believed it was the right choice. The only choice. Now, watching machines breathe for her son, she wondered if she'd simply been afraid. Dr. Reeves found her at midnight, still standing vigil. "Mrs. Vale, you should go home, rest. We'll call if anything changes." "I can't leave him." "I understand, but you won't help Adrian by collapsing yourself." Dr. Reeves paused. "Have you thought about what we discussed? About contacting the father?" Elena's reflection stared back at her from the darkened window. 34 years old, dark circles under darker eyes, wearing the same clothes she'd thrown on when the school called a lifetime ago. "If I gave you a name," she said slowly, "could you make contact? Explain the situation without involving me directly?" Medical necessity supersedes privacy concerns in life-threatening cases. If you provide the father's information, we can reach out regarding genetic testing. He'd have the right to refuse, but most parents, even estranged ones, he doesn't know. The words fell like stones. "About Adrian. He never knew I was pregnant." Dr. Reeves absorbed this without visible judgment. "That complicates things. But if he's willing to test, if he's compatible, Ms. Vale, this could save your son's life." Could, maybe, if. Elena thought about Marcus, about gray eyes and careful hands and a voice that had promised her forever, about what it would mean to open that door after 8 years of silence, about whether he would help her after she'd destroyed him, about whether she had any choice at all. "His name is Marcus Volkov," she whispered. "I don't know his current address or phone number, but he's findable." Dr. Reeves wrote it down with hands that didn't quite hide their tremor. Elena wondered if she recognized the name. Everyone recognized that name eventually. The hospital made contact 18 hours later. Elena didn't ask how. Some things were better left unknown. She was dozing in the chair beside Adrian's bed when Dr. Reeves returned, moving with the careful energy of someone delivering news that could break in multiple directions. "Ms. Vale, we reached Mr. Volkov." Elena's heart stopped and restarted in the space between words. "He's coming, tonight. He wanted me to tell you," Dr. Reeves consulted her notes. "He said to tell you he's coming and that you don't need to run." The air left the room. "He'll be here in 3 hours. He's flying in from New York. I've arranged for genetic testing as soon as he arrives. If he's compatible, we can begin prep for the transplant immediately." 3 hours. Elena looked at Adrian, still sleeping, unaware that his world was about to shift in ways she couldn't protect him from. "Does he want to see me?" Her voice came out smaller than she intended. "Doctor." Reeves's expression softened. "He asked where you'd be. I told him you haven't left Adrian's side." She paused. He said that sounded right. Marcus Volkov arrived at 4:47 a.m. Elena heard him before she saw him, measured footsteps in the ICU corridor, the particular quality of silence that followed certain people, the subtle shift as nurses and doctors recognize power when it entered their space. Then he was there, filling the doorway of Adrian's room, and 8 years collapsed into nothing. He looked older, not aged, but refined, like something sharpened by time. Same steel gray eyes, same dark hair now threaded with silver at the temples. Same way of standing absolutely still that made stillness look like coiled motion. He looked at Adrian first. Long moment, gray eyes cataloging every detail. The dark hair, the shape of his face, the too serious expression even in sleep. Then he looked at Elena. She'd prepared speeches, explanations, apologies. They all disintegrated under that gaze. Marcus. His name felt strange in her mouth after 8 years of never saying it. "Thank you for coming. I know this is—" "How old is he?" Marcus's voice was exactly as she remembered. Controlled, precise, containing multitudes beneath the surface. 8. He'll be 9 in October. The math was simple, obvious. Marcus's jaw tightened, the only visible reaction. "What's his name?" "Adrian." She paused. Adrian Vale. Something flickered in his eyes at the surname that wasn't his. Wasn't hers either, technically. Just another piece of the architecture of disappearance. He looks like you, Marcus said quietly. But he has my eyes. Yes. The silence stretched, full of 8 years of absence and questions and truths that couldn't be unsaid now that he was here, now that he could see the evidence sleeping between them. The doctor said you're here for genetic testing, Elena managed. For the transplant. If you're compatible, I'm compatible. Not arrogance. Certainty. When can we start? They need to draw blood first, confirm the markers. It takes a few hours. Then they should start now. He moved toward Adrian's bed, drawn like gravity, and Elena watched him look at his son, their son, with an expression she couldn't decipher. Does he know? Marcus asked. About me? No. I told him his father wasn't in the picture. I didn't, her voice cracked. I didn't know how to explain. Explain what? That you disappeared? That you were pregnant and you never told me? That I have a son who's 8 years old and I'm meeting him for the first time because he's dying? The words were sharp, surgical, not loud. Marcus had never needed volume to cut. I can explain, Elena said. Why I left. Why I didn't tell you. I can... Later. He turned from Adrian to face her fully, and his eyes were winter. Right now, I don't care why you did it. I care about making sure he lives. Everything else can wait. Dr. Reeves appeared in the doorway, professional and perfectly timed. Mr. Volkov, if you'll come with me, we can begin the testing process. Marcus nodded, but didn't move immediately. I need security on this floor, he said. Not to Elena, not to Dr. Reeves. To the phone he'd pulled from his pocket, already dialing. Full team, ICU access restricted to approved personnel only, no one in or out without clearance. Mr. Volkov, Doctor, Reeves began, the hospital has security protocols, which are insufficient. Marcus's tone invited no argument. My security will coordinate with yours. Non-negotiable. Elena's blood went cold. Marcus, no one knows we're here. No one knows about Adrian. There's no threat. He looked at her, and she saw what she'd been trying to forget for 8 years. Marcus Volkov knew exactly what kind of threats existed. He'd built an empire navigating them. You left because someone threatened you, he said quietly. Someone willing to kill to keep you away from me. You think 8 years made them stop caring? You think they're not watching for exactly this? How did you? I looked for you, Elena. For 2 years I looked for you. When I couldn't find you, I found the threats instead. I found who sent them. His voice dropped to something colder than winter. They're contained. But contained isn't dead. And the moment they learn I have a son, he becomes a target. The room seemed to shrink. So yes, Marcus continued, there will be security, there will be protocols, because I lost 8 years with my son, because someone threatened him before he was born. I won't lose him now. Dr. Reeves cleared her throat delicately. The security arrangements can be finalized while we run the tests. Mr. Volkov, if you'll follow me, Marcus moved toward the door, then paused. Stay with him, he said to Elena. Not a command, a request. Don't leave him alone. I won't. He nodded once and left, Dr. Reeves trailing in his wake, already speaking quietly about testing procedures and compatibility markers, and timelines that would determine if a father could save a son he'd just learned existed. Elena sank into the chair beside Adrian's bed and tried to remember how to breathe. The test took 4 hours. Dawn broke over the city, pale light filtering through ICU windows, and Elena watched Adrian sleep through medication cycles and vital checks and the steady rhythm of machines keeping him alive. Marcus returned at 9:15 a.m. Perfect match, he said from the doorway. They're scheduling the transplant, 3 days to prep. Then surgery. Relief hit her like a physical force. 3 days, she repeated. He can hold on for 3 days? Dr. Reeves says yes. They'll keep him stable with transfusions until then. Marcus moved into the room, and Elena noticed details she'd missed before. The expensive suit, perfectly tailored. The watch that cost more than most cars. The subtle signs of wealth and power that had always sat uneasily on him, like he'd never quite believed he deserved them. He pulled up a chair on the opposite side of Adrian's bed. Tell me about him, Marcus said. Everything. Start from the beginning. So Elena told him. About the pregnancy discovered weeks after she'd disappeared. About Adrian's birth in a hospital 2 states away. Alone except for a nurse who'd held her hand through contractions. About his first word, more, and his first steps directly into a wall, and the way he'd learned to read at 4 years old, devouring books like they held secrets to the universe. About quiet mornings and scraped knees and parent-teacher conferences where she'd smile and lie about Adrian's father being deployed overseas, about birthdays celebrated with grocery store cake and presents from thrift stores that Adrian had loved like they were magic. About 8 years of small moments that Marcus had missed. She expected anger, accusations, the cold fury she'd seen him direct at people who'd betrayed him. Instead, he just listened, asked questions, absorbed every detail like he was memorizing a text he'd never be tested on, but would remember anyway. He likes space, Marcus said eventually. The drawings on the wall, planets and stars. He wants to be an astronaut or an astronomer. He changes his mind every other week. Smart. He gets that from you. Marcus's eyes met hers across their sleeping son. Does he know he's sick? That he needs the transplant? I told him he has a blood problem, that we're working to fix it. He's 8. I didn't want to scare him, Marcus nodded. But he'll need to know eventually about the surgery, about... He gestured vaguely at himself. This. I know. When he wakes up, we tell him together. Not a question. Elena wanted to argue, to maintain some control over the narrative, over how her son learned that his father wasn't an abstract concept but a real person sitting 3 feet away. But she'd lost the right to control this narrative when she'd called Marcus for help. Okay, she whispered. Together. Adrian woke at 10:30 a.m., groggy and confused, eyes focusing slowly on the unfamiliar room. Mama? His voice was small, frightened. I'm here, baby. Elena took his hand, careful of the IV. Everything's okay. You're in the hospital, but you're safe. Adrian's gaze drifted past her to Marcus. Who's that? Elena's throat closed. Marcus leaned forward slightly, and she saw him consciously gentle his posture, his expression, everything about himself that could seem threatening to a frightened child. My name is Marcus, he said quietly. I'm here to help you. Are you a doctor? No, I'm... Marcus glanced at Elena, and she saw the question in his eyes. She nodded. I'm your father, Adrian. The room went silent except for monitors beeping their oblivious rhythm. Adrian looked at Marcus, then at Elena, then back to Marcus. I thought you were deployed, he said finally. Overseas, that's what Mom said. Your mother had good reasons for telling you that. Marcus's voice stayed gentle, but Elena heard the edge underneath. But it wasn't true. I've been in New York. I didn't know about you until yesterday. Adrian processed this with the seriousness of someone older than 8. Why not? That's complicated. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving. Are you going to make me better? Marcus's expression did something complicated. I'm going to try. I have the same kind of blood you do, special blood. They're going to take some of mine and give it to you, and it's going to help you get better. Like a transfusion? Smarter than that, Marcus said. It's called a bone marrow transplant. Have the doctors explained it? A little. They said my blood is sick. They need to fix it. That's right. And my blood, our blood, can help fix it. But it's going to take a few days to prepare. Until then, you need to rest and let the medicine work. Adrian studied him with eyes too old for his face. Elena's eyes. Marcus's eyes. Some combination that belonged only to their son. Are you staying? Adrian asked. Until I'm better? Yes. What about after? The question hung in the air, full of implications and futures and choices that couldn't be made in an ICU room. After you're better, Marcus said carefully, we'll figure it out together, all 3 of us. But first, we focus on making you well. Deal? Adrian considered this. Deal. Marcus extended his hand. After a moment, Adrian shook it, his small fingers disappearing into his father's palm. Elena watched them, her past and her present, her mistake and her miracle, and tried not to think about what came after. The security team arrived that afternoon. 6 people in expensive suits with weapons, hidden well enough to pass hospital regulations, but visible enough to send a message. They set up positions throughout the ICU floor, coordinated with hospital security, established protocols that transformed the wing into something between a safe house and a fortress. Elena watched it happen with growing unease. "This is too much," she told Marcus when Adrian drifted off to sleep again. "You're scaring people." "I'm protecting our son." "From what?" "Marcus, whoever threatened us before, you said they were contained. That was 8 years ago. Why would they care now?" Marcus turned from the window where he'd been watching his security team establish perimeters. "You really don't understand what you did, do you?" "What I did?" Her voice rose despite herself. "I survived. I protected our baby from... You gave them leverage." The words were soft but absolute. "For 8 years, I had nothing they could use against me. No weakness, no pressure point. I was untouchable because I had nothing to lose that mattered more than myself." He moved closer, and Elena saw past the control to something darker underneath. "Now I have a son. Now I have something I'd burn the world to protect. Do you think they won't notice? Do you think the moment this becomes public knowledge, every enemy I've ever made won't look at that boy and see opportunity? Then we don't make it public." Elena's hand shook. "We keep it quiet. After the transplant, we go back to how things were. You think you can disappear again?" Marcus's laugh was sharp and humorless. "I found you in 8 hours. 8 hours after the hospital called me, I had your address, your employer, your son's school, every detail of the life you built. If I can find you that fast, so can they." The ICU suddenly felt smaller. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying the moment I walked through that door, everything changed. There's no going back. There's only forward." His eyes held hers. "And forward means protection. Real protection. Not hiding, not hoping. Security that actually works. Security that makes us prisoners. Security that keeps you alive." Elena wanted to argue. To rage against the walls closing in. Against choices that weren't really choices. Against the future she'd tried to escape catching up anyway. But Adrian was sleeping 10 feet away, kept alive by machines and medicine and borrowed time. And Marcus was right. There was no going back. The first attempt came on the second day. 2:47 a.m. The ICU quiet except for monitors and the soft footsteps of nurses on night shift. Elena was dozing in her chair when the alarm cut through the silence. Not medical, but something else. Security breach. Unauthorized access to the stairwell. She jerked awake to find Marcus already moving, phone to his ear, voice low and controlled. North stairwell. 2 tangos. Intercept before they reach the floor. The door opened and one of the security team entered, a woman named Sarah with kind eyes and a gun hidden beneath her blazer. "Ma'am, I need you to stay here. Lock the door after I leave. Don't open it for anyone except Mr. Volkov or myself." "What's happening?" Precautionary measure. Probably nothing. But her hand was on her weapon, and probably nothing didn't require guns. Marcus ended his call. "Elena, listen to Sarah. Lock the door. Don't open it until I come back." "Where are you going?" "To handle it." He was gone before she could respond, Sarah following, the door clicking shut behind them. Elena stood frozen for 3 seconds. Then she crossed to the door and locked it with shaking hands. Adrian stirred. "Mom, what's wrong?" She plastered on a smile, moved to his bedside. "Nothing, baby. Just hospital stuff. Go back to sleep." But she couldn't hear anything through the door. No shouting, no gunfire. Just the distant hum of hospital machinery and her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. 5 minutes passed. 10. At 12 minutes, her phone buzzed. "Marcus. Contained. We're safe." Unlocking the door. The lock clicked open. Marcus entered, Sarah behind him, both looking composed except for the tightness around Marcus's eyes. "What happened?" Elena demanded. 2 men, posed as orderlies, made it to the stairwell before my team intercepted them. His voice was flat, factual. "They're in hospital security's custody now. Police are on the way." "Were they—" She couldn't finish the question with Adrian half awake behind her. "Yes." Marcus glanced at their son, then back to Elena. "They were armed. They were looking for this room specifically." The world tilted. How did they know? I don't know yet, but I will. Something cold and final moved through his expression. This floor is now completely locked down. No one in or out without biometric clearance. I've tripled the security team, and I'm staying here, in this room, until the transplant is complete and Adrian is strong enough to move. Elena wanted to argue. Wanted to say he was overreacting, that this was too much, that they couldn't live like this. But two armed men had just tried to breach the ICU. Her son's ICU. Okay, she whispered. You stay. Marcus nodded once, then pulled up his chair on the opposite side of Adrian's bed. He didn't sleep for the rest of the night, neither did Elena. And when dawn broke over the city, she finally understood what Marcus had been trying to tell her. There was no safety in hiding. There was only survival, and survival required standing beside people who knew how to fight. The transplant was scheduled for 6 a.m. on the third day. Adrian was prepped at 4:30, sedated, scrubbed, wheeled toward an operating room that would either save his life or break what was left of Elena's heart. Marcus walked beside the gurney, still in the suit he'd been wearing for 3 days, gray eyes never leaving his son's face. You should change, Elena said quietly. Go home. Shower. I'll call you when... I'm not leaving. Marcus, I've missed 8 years. I'm not missing this. A Dr. Reeves met them at the OR doors, scrubbed and ready, calm and competent. We'll take good care of him, she promised. The procedure should take 4 to 6 hours. There's a waiting room on the second floor. Someone will update you every hour. Elena kissed Adrian's forehead, careful not to disturb the IV lines. I love you, baby. I'll be right here when you wake up. Adrian, already fading under sedation, managed a sleepy smile. Love you too, Mama. Marcus touched his son's hand, brief and gentle. See you soon, Adrian. Then the doors swung shut and their son disappeared into surgery, and there was nothing left to do but wait. They sat in the waiting room. Antiseptic walls, bad coffee, motivational posters about hope. Other families occupied other corners, wrapped in their own private terrors. Elena and Marcus sat side by side in plastic chairs that had held 1,000 other terrified parents, and tried to exist in the space between past and future. Tell me why you left, Marcus said, eventually. Elena had prepared this speech 100 times. It never sounded right. Someone sent me messages, threats. They knew about the pregnancy. They said if I married you, if I had the baby, we'd both die. They proved they could get to me, to people around me. My neighbor died in a fire meant for me, so I ran. You should have told me. I did tell you. I showed you the messages, the photos, everything. You mobilized security, made promises, but they still got through. Mrs. Chen was 74 years old. She baked cookies, and she died because someone wanted to send me a message. Her voice cracked. I couldn't risk Adrian. I couldn't bring a baby into a world where people burned down buildings to get to me, so I disappeared. New city, new name, new life. I thought if they couldn't find me, couldn't connect me to you, Adrian would be safe. Was he? Marcus's voice was carefully neutral. Safe? Until 3 days ago, yes. And what happens after this? After the transplant? You disappear again? Elena closed her eyes. I don't know. I found you in 8 hours, Elena. 8 hours. If you run again, I'll find you again. And next time, I won't ask permission to stay in my son's life. The words should have sounded like a threat. Instead, they sounded like a promise. I don't want to run, Elena admitted. I'm tired of running, but I don't know how to do this. How to let him have a father who lives the kind of life you live. What kind of life is that? Dangerous, complicated, full of people who send armed men to hospitals. Marcus turned to face her fully. You think I'm going to bring danger into his life? Elena, danger is already there. It was there the moment he was born with my DNA. Running didn't protect him. It just meant he faced it alone. He wasn't alone. He had me. And now he has both of us. Marcus paused. If you'll let him. The waiting room clock ticked toward hour 3. What are you offering? Elena asked. Protection. Real protection. Not hiding, but security that actually works. A life where Adrian can go to school, have friends, exist in the world without looking over his shoulder. A life where he knows his father. And what do you want in return? To be his father. Marcus's voice went soft. That's all. To know him. To be part of his life. I'm not asking for custody. I'm not asking you to marry me. I'm asking for the chance to be present. It should have been an easy answer, but 8 years of hiding had taught Elena that nothing was ever easy. And the people who sent those men, the ones who threatened us before, will be handled. The cold thing moved through Marcus's eyes again. Permanently. Elena should have been horrified. Instead, she felt something like relief. And Dr. Reeves emerged at hour 6, still in scrubs, exhausted but smiling. The transplant was successful. Adrian stable. We'll monitor him closely for the next 72 hours, watch for any signs of rejection, but initial response looks good. Elena's legs went weak. Can we see him? Recovery room, then back to ICU. He'll be unconscious for a few more hours. But yes, you can sit with him. They followed Dr. Reeves through corridors that all looked the same, past nurses who smiled encouragement, into a recovery room where Adrian lay small and still and alive. Elena took one side of the bed. Marcus took the other, and they waited for their son to wake up. Adrian opened his eyes at 3:47 p.m. groggy, confused, but alive. Hey, baby, Elena whispered, taking his hand. You did so good. It's all over. Did it work? His voice was rough from intubation. Yes, you're going to be okay. Adrian's gaze drifted to Marcus. You gave me your blood? I did. Does that make us related? Marcus's expression did something complicated. We were always related, but yes, now you have my bone marrow. It's going to help you make healthy blood cells. Oh, cool. Adrian's eyes started to drift closed again. Does this mean I have to call you Dad? The question landed like a bomb in the quiet room. Marcus glanced at Elena. She nodded, barely perceptible. Only if you want to, Marcus said carefully. I know this is all very fast. We can figure it out as we go. Okay? Adrian yawned. I'm going to sleep now. Being sick is exhausting. Sleep, baby, Elena murmured. We'll be right here. Within minutes, he was out. Elena looked across their sleeping son at the man who'd saved him and tried to imagine a future where this worked. Thank you, she said quietly. For coming. For helping. For everything. He's my son. Marcus's voice was firm. There's no scenario where I wouldn't have come. Even after We'll deal with the past eventually. Right now, I'm focused on making sure he has a future. The ICU hummed around them, machines breathing, monitors beeping, nurses moving through their rotations, and for the first time in 8 years, Elena stopped running long enough to consider what it might mean to stay. Adrian's recovery began with small victories. The first morning after the transplant, he managed to sit up without help. The second day, he complained about hospital food, which Dr. Reeves declared an excellent sign. By the third day, he was demanding his sketchbook and drawing elaborate space battles that covered the margins of his medical charts. Elena watched him return to himself piece by piece and felt something in her chest unclench for the first time since the school had called. Marcus watched too, learning his son through observation. The way Adrian chewed his bottom lip when concentrating, how he organized his colored pencils by temperature instead of color, the specific tilt of his head when he was about to ask a question he already knew the answer to. He does that thing you do, Elena said on the fourth morning, watching Marcus study their son. When he's thinking, gets very still. He has your expressions, the way his face lights up when something surprises him. They were learning to exist in the same space again, navigating around 8 years of absence with careful politeness. Security maintained their perimeter. Nurses came and went. And Adrian, oblivious to the careful choreography around him, simply existed in the way 8-year-olds did, present, demanding, all it. Dr. Reeves ran tests every 6 hours, blood counts, engraftment markers, signs of rejection. Everything looked good. Too good, maybe? Elena tried not to think about the men who'd breached the stairwell. Marcus's security had taken them into custody, handed them to police, and nothing had happened since. No follow-up attempts, no escalation, just silence. It made her more nervous than the initial attack. They're regrouping, Marcus said when she voiced this concern. They were in the ICU waiting room, stealing 15 minutes while Adrian underwent another scan, figuring out what went wrong, planning the next move. How can you be so calm about this? I'm not calm. I'm prepared. There's a difference. Elena studied him. This man she'd loved and left, who now sat across from her in a hospital waiting room discussing threats like they were weather patterns. Do you ever get tired of it? She asked. Living like this? Always watching for the next attack? Every day? The admission surprised her. But being tired doesn't make it stop. It just makes you sloppy if you let it. Is that what you want for Adrian? A life where he can't be sloppy? Where he always has to watch his back? Marcus's jaw tightened. I want him alive. Everything else is negotiable. Before Elena could respond, Dr. Reeves appeared with scan results and a smile that suggested good news. The engraftment is progressing beautifully. His body is accepting the transplant. If he continues at this rate, we can discuss discharge in another week. A week, 7 days. Then they'd leave the controlled environment of the hospital and face the question Elena had been avoiding. What happened next? Marcus caught her expression. We'll figure it out, he said quietly, and Elena wanted desperately to believe him. Adrian returned from his scan full of questions about the MRI machine and whether it could actually see thoughts like he'd read in a comic book. Elena answered while Marcus listened, and for a brief moment they felt almost like a family. Almost. The illusion shattered that night. Elena was dozing in her chair when Marcus's phone buzzed. He checked it, and something shifted in his expression, not fear, but recognition. The look of someone receiving expected bad news. What is it? She asked. They found the leak. His voice was carefully neutral. Someone on the hospital's administrative staff. They've been feeding information about Adrian's location and condition to an outside contact. Elena's blood went cold. Who? We don't know yet. My people are tracking it now. Marcus stood, already moving toward the door. I need to handle this. Sarah will stay with you. Don't leave this room. Marcus? But he was gone, the door closing with quiet finality behind him. Sarah materialized seconds later, positioned near the window with sight lines to both the door and Adrian's bed. What's happening? Elena demanded. Precautionary measure, ma'am. Mr. Volkov is addressing a security concern. We're safe here. Safe. The word had lost all meaning. Elena moved to Adrian's bedside, took his small hand in hers, and tried not to think about what Marcus was doing in the floors below them. Tried not to imagine confrontations in hospital corridors or conversations that ended in ways she didn't want to know about. An hour passed. 2. At 2:34 a.m., Marcus returned. His suit jacket was gone, sleeves rolled up, and there was something dark on his knuckles that might have been blood. It's handled, he said. Elena didn't ask what handled meant. She didn't want to know. The next morning, a different administrative coordinator processed Adrian's paperwork. The original one, a friendly woman named Patricia who'd helped Elena with insurance forms, was simply gone. No explanation. No goodbye. Elena tried not to think about where people went when Marcus Volkov decided they were problems. Adrian noticed none of it. He was improving daily now, color returning to his cheeks, energy rebuilding in increments. He asked Marcus questions about everything, about New York, about his work, about why he wore such formal clothes to a hospital. It's my uniform, Marcus explained, straightening his tie with hands that had done something violent less than 12 hours ago. Everyone has a uniform. Yours is those space pajamas. Mine is this. Mom doesn't have a uniform. Sure she does. Sensible clothes and worried expressions. Adrian giggled. Elena tried to be offended but couldn't quite manage it. These moments felt stolen, fragile, like they existed in a bubble that would burst the moment they acknowledged it was there. On the 6th day post-transplant, Dr. Reeves declared Adrian stable enough for limited movement. He could leave his bed, walk the hallway with supervision, start rebuilding strength. Can we go outside? Adrian asked immediately. I want to see the sky. Not yet, buddy, Marcus said. Your immune system is still weak. We need to keep you away from crowds and germs for a while longer. How long? A few more weeks. Then we'll go anywhere you want. Even space? Marcus smiled. A real smile, not the controlled expression he wore like armor. I'll make some calls, see what I can arrange. Adrian's eyes went wide. Really? Really? Elena watched this exchange, watched her son look at his father with growing trust and wonder, and felt the ground shift beneath her. This wasn't temporary anymore. Marcus wasn't going to walk away when Adrian was healed and stable, and increasingly, she wasn't sure she wanted him to. That evening, while Adrian slept, Marcus pulled Elena into the hallway for a conversation that felt overdue. "We need to talk about next steps," he said, "once he's discharged. I know. I have a property outside the city. Secure, private, medical staff on site. Adrian could recover there, build his strength back in a controlled environment." Elena's first instinct was to refuse, to reject anything that sounded like Marcus taking control. But she was exhausted. 8 years of running, of looking over her shoulder, of building safety from nothing but hope and distance. "For how long?" she asked. "As long as it takes. Weeks, months, however long until he's strong enough to live normally." "And then?" Marcus met her eyes. "Then you decide. You can go back to your life if that's what you want. I'll set up protection, make sure you're safe, but I won't force you to stay. Or," he paused, "or you can build something different, something that doesn't involve hiding. With you. With me." "Yes." The offer hung between them, full of implications Elena wasn't ready to unpack. "I need to think about it." "Take your time." "But Elena," Marcus's voice dropped. "Whoever is targeting us, they're not going to stop just because we're not together. They'll keep coming. The only question is whether we face it separately or together." He was right. She hated that he was right. "I'll think about it," she repeated. Marcus nodded and returned to Adrian's room, leaving Elena alone in the fluorescent hallway with a choice that wasn't really a choice at all. The attack came on the 7th day, not at the hospital. Marcus's security had transformed the ICU into a fortress. No, they were smarter this time. They went after Elena. She was in the hospital cafeteria grabbing coffee during one of Adrian's physical therapy sessions. Marcus was with their son. Sarah was positioned outside the therapy room. Elena had thought she was safe in a public space full of people. She was wrong. The man approached while she was waiting for her order. Ordinary looking, forgettable, the kind of person who disappeared into crowds. "Elena Moravsky," he said quietly, and the old name hit her like a physical blow. Or should I say, Elena Vale? So many names, so many lives. She turned to run. He caught her arm, gripped tight enough to bruise. "Don't scream. Don't make a scene. Just listen." His other hand stayed in his jacket pocket, positioned in a way that suggested a weapon. "You took something that doesn't belong to you, Marcus Volkov's son. That's valuable property. He's a child, not property." Semantics. The man's smile never reached his eyes. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to bring the boy to the south parking garage in exactly 1 hour. Alone. No security. No Marcus. Just you and the kid. I won't do that. Then we'll come get him ourselves, and a lot of people will die when we do. Hospital staff, patients, maybe even that nice physical therapist who's working with him right now. Is that what you want?" Elena's mind raced. She could scream. Security would respond. But the man's hand was in his pocket, and this was a crowded cafeteria, and people could die before help arrived. "Why?" she managed. "Why do you want him?" "That's not your concern. 1 hour. South garage. Come alone, or we come loud." He released her arm and walked away, disappearing into the crowd like he'd never existed. Elena stood frozen, coffee forgotten, trying to breathe around the panic constricting her chest. She couldn't bring Adrian to them, but she couldn't risk them attacking the hospital either. Too many innocent people, too much potential for casualties. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and called the one person who might have an answer. Marcus picked up on the first ring. "Elena, what's wrong?" "We have a problem." She told him everything, the man, the threat, the 1-hour deadline. Marcus listened without interrupting, and when she finished, his voice was cold enough to freeze. "Where are you right now?" "Cafeteria. 2nd floor." "Stay there. I'm coming to you. Don't move. Don't talk to anyone." He ended the call. Elena sank into the nearest chair and tried not to think about the clock counting down toward a choice she couldn't make. Marcus arrived 3 minutes later, Sarah and two other security personnel flanking him. He scanned the cafeteria with professional efficiency, cataloging faces and exits. Show me exactly where he stood. Elena pointed to the spot near the coffee counter. One of Marcus's team immediately moved there, examining the space like it might hold answers. Did he touch anything? Leave anything behind? No, just talked and left. Cameras? Marcus addressed Sarah. Checking now, sir. Marcus turned to Elena, and his eyes were winter. You're not going to that garage. He said he'd attack the hospital if I don't. Marcus, there are children here, sick people. We won't. But you're not delivering our son to them either. He pulled out his phone, already dialing. I'm calling in reinforcements. If they want a confrontation, we'll give them one, on our terms. What if they attack anyway? What if... Marcus took her shoulders, gentle but firm. Elena, look at me. I won't let them hurt anyone here. I won't let them take Adrian. And I won't let you sacrifice yourself thinking it will solve this. Do you understand? She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that he could protect everyone, solve everything, make the impossible choice unnecessary. But she'd learned 8 years ago that some choices couldn't be avoided. What are you going to do? She asked. Set a trap. They want a meeting? They'll get one. But not with you. Marcus's expression went predatory. They'll get me. That's exactly what they want. You without protection, alone in a garage. Marcus, it's suicide. It would be if I was actually alone. He glanced at Sarah, who nodded once. I'll have a team positioned throughout the garage. Snipers, close protection, every advantage. When they show up expecting a frightened mother with her son, they'll find me instead. And this ends. What if it doesn't work? It will work. The certainty in his voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it terrified her. Because she'd seen what happened when Marcus Volkov made promises. He kept them, no matter what it cost. No matter who got hurt in the process. I should come with you, she said. As backup, or you should stay with our son and make sure he doesn't know anything is wrong. Marcus's voice softened slightly. He's 8 years old and he just had a bone marrow transplant. He doesn't need to know his parents are dealing with this. He needs to focus on getting better. He was right, again. Elena hated how often he was right. Promise me you'll be careful, she whispered. I promise I'll end this, one way or another. It wasn't the promise she'd asked for, but it was the one he could give. Marcus left her with Sarah and 2 additional security personnel, then disappeared to prepare for a confrontation Elena wouldn't witness, but would live with the consequences of forever. She returned to Adrian's room, plastered on a smile, and pretended everything was fine. Where were you? Adrian asked, looking up from the tablet Marcus had brought him. You were gone forever. Just getting coffee. How was therapy? Hard, but I walked all the way to the nurse's station and back, twice. That's amazing, baby. Where's Dad? The word, Dad, casual and confident, still surprised her every time. He had to take care of some work. He'll be back soon. Okay. Adrian returned to his tablet, already distracted by whatever game held his attention. Elena sat in her chair and watched the clock count down toward an hour she couldn't stop. 53 minutes, 45, 30. Her phone stayed silent. No updates from Marcus. No word from his security team. Just silence and the steady beep of Adrian's monitors and her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. At 15 minutes to the deadline, her phone finally buzzed. Marcus. In position. Stay with Adrian. Don't leave the room no matter what you hear. Elena. Be safe, please. Marcus. Always. The lie sat heavy between them, even through text. 10 minutes. 5. Elena forced herself to breathe normally, to respond to Adrian's questions about the game he was playing, to exist in the moment instead of the terrible futures her mind kept constructing. At exactly 1 hour after the initial threat, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then thought maybe it was Marcus using a burner. Maybe something had changed. Maybe Ms. Moravsky. The same voice from the cafeteria, calm and cold. I'm disappointed. The south garage is empty except for one very angry Marcus Volkov and his security team. That wasn't the arrangement. Elena's blood froze. Did you really think we wouldn't anticipate his response? That we'd believe you'd come alone? The man laughed, soft and terrible. Marcus is predictable. He thinks he can control everything, solve everything with force and money and threats. But he can't control what he doesn't see coming. What do you want? We already have what we want. Check your son's room. The line went dead. Elena spun toward Adrian's bed, heart stopping. He was there, safe, drawing on his tablet, completely oblivious. Sarah stood near the window, positioned exactly where she'd been all afternoon. Nothing looked wrong. Sarah, Elena said carefully, check the room, now. Sarah moved immediately, professional and efficient, scanning every surface, every corner, She stopped at the medical cart near Adrian's IV line. Ma'am, we have a problem. Elena crossed to her on legs that barely held her weight. There, taped to the underside of the cart, where no one would think to look, was a small device. Blinking red light. Timer counting down. 90 seconds. Bomb, Sarah said, already moving. We need to evacuate, now. She scooped Adrian up, tablet and all, ignoring his surprised yelp. Mom? What's happening? Just a drill, baby. We need to leave the room for a minute. Sarah was already in the hallway, moving fast but controlled, speaking rapidly into her radio. Code Black. ICU. Explosive device. Evacuate the floor. Now. Alarms started blaring. People appeared from rooms and offices, nurses and patients and visitors, all moving toward the stairs in organized chaos. Elena ran beside Sarah, Adrian crying now, frightened and confused, as they raced down hallway after hallway toward an exit that seemed impossibly far. Behind them, the ICU was emptying. Patients in wheelchairs, on gurneys, supported by staff, all flooding toward the stairwells while security teams swept the floor. They made it to the stairwell 30 seconds before the explosion. The sound was muffled by concrete and distance, but Elena felt it in her bones, a deep, terrible thump that shook the building. Adrian screamed. Elena pulled him close, wrapped herself around him like she could shield him from everything that was wrong with the world. It's okay, she lied. We're safe. You're safe. Sarah's radio crackled with updates. Bomb squad en route. Fire department responding. Casualties unknown. Marcus's voice cut through the static. Elena! Elena! Answer me. Where are you? Sarah handed over the radio. We're in the north stairwell, Elena managed. We're okay. Adrian's okay. Stay there. I'm coming to you. The line went silent. Sarah guided them down to the first floor through emergency doors into the organized chaos of a hospital evacuation. Ambulances, fire trucks, police vehicles. People everywhere, some injured, some just frightened, all trying to understand what had just happened. Marcus found them 10 minutes later. He appeared through the crowd like something summoned, moving with purpose that scattered people from his path. When he saw them, Elena and Adrian huddled together near an ambulance. Something in his expression cracked. He dropped to his knees in front of Adrian. Are you hurt? His hands moved over his son with gentle efficiency, checking for injuries. I'm scared, Adrian sobbed. There was a loud noise and people were running and I don't understand what's happening. I know you're scared, but you're safe now. I promise. Marcus lifted him, carefully, mindful of the recent surgery, and held him close. Adrian buried his face in his father's shoulder and cried while Marcus murmured reassurances and Elena stood there trying to remember how to breathe. We need to leave, Marcus said quietly over Adrian's head. Now. This location is compromised. Where? My property, the one I mentioned. It's 40 minutes from here. Secure. They won't find us there. Elena wanted to argue, to insist they could handle this differently, go to the police, find some solution that didn't involve running. But the hospital behind them was burning. People were hurt because someone wanted to get to their son. And staying meant more attacks, more casualties, more chances for something to go wrong. Okay, she whispered. We'll go. Marcus's security team materialized around them, forming a protective circle. 2 SUVs pulled up, engines running, doors already open. They were moving before Elena fully processed the decision. Adrian in Marcus's arms, Sarah beside them. Security scanning every angle, every face, every potential threat. Into the vehicle. Doors closing. Engine accelerating. Elena looked back once. The hospital grew smaller in the distance, smoke rising from the upper floors where Adrian's room had been, where they'd spent a week believing they were safe. where she'd almost lost everything that mattered. Marcus sat beside her, Adrian still pressed against his chest, and reached for her hand. She took it, and together they drove toward a future that looked nothing like the life she'd carefully constructed from silence and distance. The property appeared after 40 minutes of highway and 20 minutes of unmarked roads. Gates opened to admit them, closing immediately behind. The house beyond was modern and sprawling, all glass and steel and security measures disguised as architecture. "This is your place?" Elena asked as they pulled into a circular driveway. "One of them, the most secure." Marcus shifted Adrian gently. "He's asleep. Adrenaline crash, he's exhausted. Let's get him inside, get everyone settled, then we can figure out next steps." The house was beautiful in the way expensive things were, perfect and cold and lacking anything personal. Marcus carried Adrian to a bedroom on the second floor, laid him on a bed that looked like it had never been slept in. "Guest room," he explained quietly. "I'll have my staff bring proper furniture tomorrow, things that feel more like home." "This is temporary, right?" Elena watched her son sleep, so small against white sheets. "Just until the threat is resolved?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. When she turned, his expression was careful. "The threat won't be resolved by waiting it out. These people, they're not going to stop until they get what they want, or we make them stop." "What do they want?" "Leverage, control. Me, compromised and vulnerable." Marcus moved to the window, looked out over grounds protected by fences and cameras and armed security. "They've been trying to find my weakness for years. Now they have it." "Adrian." "You and Adrian, both of you." Elena sank into a chair near the bed. "So what do we do?" "We end it." Marcus turned from the window. "Permanently. No more warnings, no more half measures. I find who's behind this and I make sure they never threaten my family again." Family. The word hung in the air, simple and complicated and full of implications Elena wasn't ready to examine. "How long will that take?" "Days. Maybe a week." Marcus's voice was flat, factual. "I have resources, information networks. People who owe me favors, I'll find them." "And then?" His expression went cold. "Then it ends." Elena knew she should ask more questions, should demand details about what ends meant, what Marcus was planning, what consequences would follow. But she was exhausted, terrified, and increasingly certain that some things were better left unknown. "Okay," she said instead, "we stay here. We let you handle it. But Marcus," she met his eyes, "when this is over, we need to talk, really talk, about what happens next, about what kind of life we want for Adrian. I know, because I won't let him grow up afraid, won't let him think violence is the only solution to problems." "Neither will I." Marcus moved closer, crouched beside her chair. "I want him to have better than I did, better than what I am. But first, we have to make sure he survives to have any kind of life at all." He was right, again, always right when it came to survival. Elena just wished survival didn't come with such a terrible cost. Marcus left her with Adrian, promising to return with food and anything else they needed. Sarah took position outside the bedroom door. Other security personnel moved through the house with quiet efficiency, securing perimeters and establishing protocols. Elena climbed onto the bed beside her son, careful not to wake him, and let herself feel the terror she'd been holding back. They'd come so close. If Sarah hadn't found the device, if the evacuation had taken 30 seconds longer, if Adrian had been less resilient, if the transplant had weakened him more, if any of 1,000 variables had shifted slightly, she forced herself to stop. Adrian was alive, safe, sleeping peacefully despite everything. That had to be enough. For now, it had to be enough. Morning arrived with unfamiliar light filtering through windows Elena didn't recognize. For 3 disorienting seconds, she couldn't remember where she was. Then Adrian shifted beside her, and everything came back in a rush. The bomb, the evacuation, Marcus's secure house in the middle of nowhere. Her son was still asleep, face peaceful in a way that made her chest ache. She slipped from the bed carefully, crossed to the window, and looked out over grounds that resembled a luxury resort more than a fortress. Manicured lawns stretched toward a distant tree line. A pool glittered in the early sun, gardens arranged with geometric precision. Nothing suggested the security measures Marcus had mentioned, but Elena knew they were there. Cameras, sensors, armed personnel positioned where casual observers wouldn't notice. A prison dressed as paradise. The bedroom door opened quietly. Marcus entered carrying a tray with coffee and what looked like breakfast pastries from somewhere far better than a hospital cafeteria. "You're awake," he said, voice low to avoid disturbing Adrian. "I wasn't sure if you'd slept at all." "A few hours." Elena accepted the coffee gratefully. "Is there news?" "My people are tracking leads. We identified the man who approached you in the cafeteria. Low-level operative. He's being questioned now." Elena didn't ask what question meant in Marcus's world. She wasn't sure she wanted to know. "In the hospital? The people who were hurt?" "Minor injuries. Smoke inhalation mostly. The bomb was positioned to cause chaos, not casualties. They wanted panic, not a body count." This time, Marcus agreed, "which is why we're staying here until it's finished." Elena sipped her coffee and tried to organize thoughts that felt scattered across too many terrible possibilities. "I need to call my work. Let them know I won't be in. And Adrian's school, already handled. Your employer thinks you've taken emergency family leave. The school has been notified that Adrian is recovering from a medical procedure and will be absent for several weeks." "You can't just—" "I can. And I did." Marcus's tone invited no argument. "Your life, Elena, the one you built over the past 8 years, it's not safe anymore. These people know where you worked, where Adrian went to school, everywhere you went regularly. Going back means making yourself a target. So what am I supposed to do? Just disappear? Again? No, you're supposed to let me fix this so you don't have to disappear. So Adrian can have a real life instead of one built on running and hiding." The words stung because they were true. Elena had built safety from distance and silence, but it had never been real safety. Just borrowed time that had finally run out. "How long?" she asked quietly. "I don't know. Days. Maybe longer." "And we just wait here while you handle it?" Marcus set down his own coffee and moved closer, careful to maintain distance, but close enough that she could see the exhaustion around his eyes. "I know you hate this. Hate feeling helpless. But Elena, these people already tried to kill you twice. They bombed a hospital. I can't—" His voice roughened. "I can't protect you and Adrian if you're out there where I can't see you. So yes, you wait here. You let me handle it. And when it's done, we figure out what comes next." Adrian stirred behind them, making the small sounds that preceded waking. "We're not finished talking about this," Elena said. "I know." Adrian's eyes opened, confused and slightly panicked, until he saw them both standing there. "Where are we?" Marcus moved to the bed, sat on the edge with practiced casualness. "My house. Remember? I told you about it. You needed somewhere quiet to recover, away from the hospital." "Because of the fire?" Elena and Marcus exchanged glances. "Yes," Marcus said carefully. "Because of the fire. But you're safe here. I promise." Adrian processed this with the serious consideration he applied to everything. "Okay. Can I see the rest of the house? Is there a TV? Do you have video games?" The normalcy of the questions was jarring. "There's all of that," Marcus assured him. "But first, breakfast. Then your mother and I need to check with your doctors. Make sure everything is still healing properly." "I feel fine." "That's good, but we're going to check anyway." Adrian sighed the sigh of 8-year-olds everywhere confronted with adult caution. "Fine. But after, can we explore?" "After, we'll see." Marcus helped him out of bed, steadying him when he swayed slightly. The transplant was still recent. Adrian was stronger than he'd been in the ICU, but recovery took time. They made their way downstairs to a kitchen that looked like something from an architectural magazine. All marble counters and professional-grade appliances and a breakfast bar where someone, Marcus's staff presumably, had laid out enough food for a small army. Adrian's eyes went wide. "Is this all for us?" "Help yourself," Marcus said. "Whatever you want." Elena watched her son pile a plate with pancakes and bacon, chattering about the house and asking questions about every detail, and tried to reconcile this moment with the violence that had brought them here. Marcus answered Adrian's questions with patience she hadn't known he possessed, explaining the house's features without mentioning the security systems integrated into every wall and window. They were halfway through breakfast when Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and something shifted in his expression. I need to take this. Elena, can you? I've got him. Marcus stepped into an adjacent room, voice dropping to tones Elena couldn't decipher. Is Dad okay? Adrian asked around a mouthful of pancake. Dad. Still strange to hear, still right somehow. He's fine. Just work stuff. What kind of work does he do? Elena had been dreading this question. Business, investments, complicated financial things. It wasn't technically a lie. Marcus did all those things. He just did other things too. Darker things. Things 8-year-olds didn't need to know about. That sounds boring. Very boring, Elena agreed. Marcus returned 15 minutes later, expression carefully neutral but eyes sharp. Good news. Dr. Reeves can come here this afternoon. Do a full examination, make sure everything is progressing well. She's coming here? Elena asked. To your house? I explained the situation. She understands the security concerns. Another piece of Elena's constructed reality dismantled. Dr. Reeves making house calls. Medical care delivered to Marcus's fortress instead of a proper hospital. This was her life now. Okay, she said, because what else could she say? That's good. Thank you. Adrian, oblivious to the undercurrents, had moved on to asking about the pool he'd seen from the window. Can I swim? I'm a really good swimmer. Mom made me take lessons every summer. Not yet, Marcus said. Your immune system is still rebuilding. We need to keep you away from potential infections for a few more weeks. But after that, yes. You can swim. What about video games? Those don't have germs. Video games are fine. I'll have someone set up a gaming system in your room. Really? What kind? Do you have the new console? Tommy at school has one and he says it's amazing and Marcus held up a hand, smiling. I have no idea what console I have, but I'll make sure you get whatever Tommy at school has. Deal? Deal! Adrian's enthusiasm was infectious. Even Elena found herself smiling despite everything. They spent the rest of the morning exploring the house. It was enormous. Too many rooms for one person, filled with expensive furniture and art that looked important but cold. Adrian raced from room to room with the energy of someone feeling better by the hour, declaring favorites and asking questions about everything. Marcus followed, answering what he could and deflecting what he couldn't. Elena trailed behind, watching them interact with something complicated twisting in her chest. This could have been their life 8 years ago, if she hadn't run, if the threats hadn't come, if the world had been different enough to allow it. But the world wasn't different. The threats had been real then and were real now. Running hadn't solved anything. It had just delayed the inevitable. Dr. Reeves arrived at 2 o'clock, professional and efficient despite the unusual circumstances. She examined Adrian thoroughly, checked his blood counts with a portable lab setup Marcus had somehow arranged, and declared everything progressing beautifully. His engraftment is excellent, immune system rebuilding on schedule. If he continues like this, he'll be back to normal activities within a month. Normal activities, Elena repeated. Like school? Dr. Reeves hesitated, glanced at Marcus. That's more a security question than a medical one. Physically, yes. He'll be strong enough, but it's not safe, Elena finished. I can't speak to that. But medically, he's doing wonderfully. You should be very proud. After Dr. Reeves left, Adrian returned to exploring while Elena and Marcus stood in the kitchen trying to figure out how to exist in this new configuration. He can't stay locked in this house forever, Elena said quietly. He needs friends, school, a normal life. I know. So what's the plan? We wait here while you hunt down whoever is threatening us, and then what? He goes back to his old school where everyone knows his face and routine, where they can find him. Marcus poured himself coffee he didn't seem to want, just needed something to do with his hands. I've been thinking about that. There are options. Private schools with better security. Tutors. Ways to give him an education without making him an easy target. That's not a normal life, Marcus. That's a gilded cage. It's a live life. Normal can come later, after the threat is eliminated. Elena wanted to argue, to insist that normal mattered, that childhood couldn't be put on hold while adults solved adult problems. But she'd seen the bomb, watched the hospital burn, knew exactly how serious these threats were. How close are you? She asked instead. To finding them. Close. The man from the cafeteria is giving us information. Not willingly, but he's talking. We've identified 3 people in the chain of command, working our way up to whoever is giving orders. And when you find them, Marcus's expression went cold. I make sure they never threaten anyone I care about again. The certainty in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it felt like relief. She'd spent 8 years trying to solve problems through absence and distance, through making herself invisible and hoping that was enough. Marcus solved problems through confrontation and force and permanent solutions. Part of her wanted to be horrified by the difference. But a larger part, the part that had watched her son almost die, that had run from a burning hospital, that was tired of being afraid, wanted Marcus to succeed, wanted him to make it stop, whatever that required. Okay, she said quietly. We stay, we wait, and you do what you need to do. Marcus studied her like he was trying to decipher a language he'd once spoken but had forgotten. You're different than you were, he said finally. 8 years ago, you would have argued more. 8 years ago, I thought running would solve everything. I was wrong. You were protecting our son. That's not wrong. I was protecting him from shadows instead of addressing the actual threat. There's a difference. Marcus set down his coffee cup. For what it's worth, I understand why you ran. I was angry. I'm still angry. But I understand. It was the closest they'd come to actually discussing what had happened. The abandonment. The years of absence. The son he'd never known existed. I'm sorry, Elena said, and meant it. For leaving. For not telling you about Adrian. For all of it. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was scared. I know. Are you going to forgive me? Marcus considered the question with the same seriousness he applied to everything. I don't know yet, but I'm trying. It was honest. More honest than easy platitudes about the past being the past. Elena could work with honest. That's fair, she said. Adrian's voice drifted from somewhere deeper in the house, calling for them to come see something he'd found. They went together, falling into the rhythm of co-parenting with surprising ease, answering questions, mediating disputes between what Adrian wanted and what was safe, existing in proximity without the weight of 8 years crushing every interaction. It felt almost normal. Almost. That night, after Adrian was asleep, Elena found Marcus in what appeared to be a home office. Computer screens displayed information she didn't want to examine too closely. Security feeds, financial data, things that looked like intelligence reports. Can't sleep? He asked without looking up. Too many thoughts. Elena moved into the room, careful not to look at the screens directly. Are you making progress? Some. We've identified the organization behind the attacks, small operation, professional, well-funded. Who's funding them? Marcus finally looked at her. That's the question I'm working on answering. The people giving orders are careful, layers of separation between them and the actual operators. But we're closing in. Elena sank into a chair across from his desk. Tell me the truth. Are we safe here? As safe as anywhere. This property has security measures most military installations would envy. They'd need an army to breach it. That's not actually reassuring. It's not meant to be reassuring. It's meant to be true. Marcus leaned back in his chair. I won't lie to you, Elena. These people are dangerous, professional, well-organized. But so am I. And I have advantages they don't. Like what? Resources. Information networks. People who are very good at making problems disappear. His expression darkened. And motivation. They're doing this for money or power or whatever drives people like them. I'm doing this because they threaten my family. There's no limit to what I'll do to protect you and Adrian. The words should have sounded like a threat. Instead, they sounded like a promise. I believe you, Elena said quietly. They sat in silence for a moment. The only sound, the soft hum of computers processing information that would lead to confrontations Elena was grateful she wouldn't witness. Can I ask you something? Marcus said eventually. Yes. Why did you name him Adrian? The question surprised her. It was my grandfather's name. He died when I was 16. He was kind, patient, everything good about family. I wanted our son to have that connection. Our son, Marcus repeated softly. You thought of him as ours, even when you were alone? Always. I never stopped thinking of you as his father, even when I convinced myself you could never know him. Marcus absorbed this, turning it over like a puzzle piece he was trying to fit into place. He has your last name, Vale. It's not my real name, just something I picked when I disappeared. It sounded safe, ordinary. Elena Vale, Marcus said, testing it. I prefer Moravsky. That name doesn't exist anymore. It could, if you wanted it to. The implication hung between them, full of futures Elena wasn't ready to imagine. I don't know what I want, she admitted. Everything is happening so fast. The transplant, the attacks, being here with you. I can't think past making sure Adrian stays alive and safe. Then don't think past it. Just focus on that. Everything else can wait. It was permission she hadn't known she needed. Elena stood, suddenly exhausted. I should sleep. Try to, anyway. Elena. Marcus stopped her at the door. Thank you. For what? For trusting me, for being here, for giving me a chance to know my son. You saved his life. It's the least I can do. No, you kept him alive for 8 years when I didn't know he existed. That's more than I could have asked for. Elena didn't know what to say to that, so she just nodded and left him to his work. Sleep came easier than expected, exhaustion finally overwhelming anxiety. She dreamed of hospitals and fire and running through endless corridors that never led anywhere safe. The next 3 days developed a strange rhythm. Adrian continued recovering, energy returning in increments. Marcus worked endless hours tracking leads and coordinating with people Elena never saw. And Elena existed in the spaces between, trying to figure out how to be a mother in a fortress, how to give Adrian normalcy in circumstances that were anything but normal. They established routines, breakfast together, medical checks, quiet hours where Adrian rested, afternoons of games and movies, and Adrian's endless questions about everything. Marcus was surprisingly good with him, patient where Elena expected impatience, gentle where she expected distance. He seemed to genuinely enjoy their son's company, asking questions about Adrian's interest and actually listening to the answers. You're good at this, Elena said on the third evening, watching Marcus help Adrian build an elaborate space station from blocks they'd found in one of the unused rooms. At what? Being a father. Marcus positioned another block carefully, letting Adrian direct the construction. I'm figuring it out as I go, like everything else. You could have been angry, could have resented him for existing when you didn't know about him. Why would I resent him? None of this was his choice. Marcus glanced up. I'm angry at circumstances, at the people who threatened you, at losing 8 years. But Adrian? He's the only good thing to come out of any of this. Adrian, focused on his space station, didn't seem to notice the conversation happening around him. He likes you, Elena said quietly. Trusts you. I like him too. He's smart, funny, sees the world in interesting ways. Marcus paused. He's a lot like you. He has your eyes, your way of going very still when he's thinking. Good combination then. It was the most comfortable conversation they'd had since Elena had disappeared 8 years ago. Almost like they were building something new instead of trying to resurrect something dead. That night, Marcus's phone rang at 2 a.m. Elena heard him moving through the house, voice low and controlled, and knew something had changed. She found him in his office, still on the phone, expression carved from winter. He saw her and held up one finger. Wait. Elena waited. Confirm it, Marcus said into the phone. Triple check every detail. I want no mistakes. If this is solid, we move immediately. He ended the call and looked at Elena. We found them. Her heart stopped. The people behind the attacks? The person giving orders, the one funding the operation. Marcus's voice was flat, emotionless. I know who's been trying to kill you. Who? Sofia Castellano. The name meant nothing to Elena. I don't know who that is. You wouldn't. She's been careful to stay invisible, but 8 years ago she wanted to marry me. Believed we had an understanding. When I proposed to you instead, she took it personally. Elena's mind raced, trying to process this. She's been trying to kill me for 8 years because you chose me over her? She's been trying to eliminate what she sees as an obstacle. First you, now Adrian. In her mind, if you're both gone, eventually I'll come back to her. It's not rational, but obsession rarely is. And you're sure it's really her? My people trace the money, the orders. Everything leads back to her. She's been running this operation through proxies and shell companies, but the trail is solid. Elena sank into a chair, trying to reconcile years of running with the reality of who had been chasing her. A woman scorned, a rejected proposal. 8 years of violence stemming from wounded pride. What happens now? She asked. Marcus's expression went cold. Now I end it. How? You don't want to know the details. Maybe I do. Marcus studied her, seeming to weigh how much truth she could handle. I'm going to confront her. Make it clear that any further action against you or Adrian will have consequences she won't survive. And then I'm going to dismantle every asset she has until there's nothing left but the choice to disappear or face prosecution for attempted murder. And if she doesn't choose either, then I make the choice for her. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. When? Elena asked. Tomorrow night. I have a meeting scheduled. Neutral location. She thinks it's about business. She doesn't know I've connected her to the attacks. That's dangerous. Everything is dangerous, but this ends it. Marcus moved closer. One way or another, after tomorrow night, you and Adrian will be safe. Elena wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that confrontation would solve what 8 years of hiding hadn't. Promise me you'll be careful. I promise I'll finish this. It wasn't the promise she'd asked for, but it was the one that mattered. Elena returned to bed but didn't sleep. She lay in the dark, listening to the house settle around her, and tried to prepare for whatever came next. Morning arrived with false normalcy. Breakfast. Medical checks. Adrian chattering about the video game he'd finally beaten. Marcus moved through the routine with practiced ease, but Elena saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes kept drifting to his phone. I have to go out tonight, he told Adrian over lunch. Business meeting. I'll be back late. Can I come? Not this time, buddy. Boring adult stuff. You'd hate it. Everything adults do is boring. Exactly. So you stay here with your mom, and I'll bring back something interesting tomorrow. Deal? What kind of interesting? Surprise interesting. Adrian considered this. Okay, but it better be a good surprise. It will be. Marcus left at 6 o'clock, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than Elena's car, moving with the quiet confidence of someone walking into danger, fully prepared for it. Elena watched him go and tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. She kept Adrian distracted with movies and games, but her mind was elsewhere, with Marcus, at whatever meeting he was attending, waiting for news that wouldn't come until it was over. 10 o'clock passed. 11. Midnight came and went with no word. At 1 in the morning, Elena's phone finally buzzed. Marcus. It's done. Heading home. We're safe. Relief hit her like a physical force. Elena. Are you okay? Marcus. I'm fine. Tell you everything when I get there. He arrived 40 minutes later, looking exhausted but uninjured. Sarah followed him in, spoke quietly to the night security team, then disappeared. Adrian asleep? Marcus asked. Finally, around 11. Elena searched his face for signs of whatever had happened. You said it's done? It's done. Marcus moved to the kitchen, poured himself something that wasn't coffee. Sofia Castellano won't be a problem anymore. What did you do? I showed her evidence of her involvement in the attacks, made it clear that continuing would mean federal prosecution and asset seizure. She denied it at first, but when I laid out everything we'd found, the money trails, the communications, the proof, she understood there was no way out. And she just agreed to stop? She agreed to leave the country and never contact me or anyone connected to me again. In exchange, I don't turn the evidence over to authorities. She gets to just walk away? Marcus met her eyes. She loses everything that matters to her, money, reputation, her life here. That's not walking away. That's exile. It should have felt insufficient. A woman who'd tried to kill them multiple times, sent armed men to a hospital, planted a bomb, simply getting to leave. But Elena was too tired to want revenge. She just wanted it to be over. "It's really finished?" she asked. "It's really finished. The organization she was funding is dissolved. The operators have been identified and will face prosecution. The threat is gone." Elena's legs went weak. She sat heavily in the nearest chair. "We're safe. You're safe. Both of you." 8 years of running, of looking over her shoulder, of building safety from silence and distance. Over. Just like that. What happens now? The question came out smaller than she intended. Marcus sat across from her, exhaustion written in every line of his body. "Now we figure out what life looks like without the threat hanging over us. You and Adrian can go back to your life if you want. I'll make sure you have security, but you won't need to hide anymore. Or you stay. Build something different. Something that includes me." The offer Elena had been avoiding thinking about since the hospital. "I don't know if I can do that," she admitted. "Trust you. Trust this. After everything. I'm not asking you to decide tonight. Take time. Figure out what you want. What's best for Adrian." Marcus paused. "But Elena, I meant what I said before. I want to be part of his life. However that looks. Whatever you're comfortable with. Joint custody? Scheduled visits? If that's what you want, or more, or less. Whatever works." It was more grace than she'd expected. More flexibility than the Marcus she'd known 8 years ago would have offered. "You've changed," she said. "So have you." They sat in silence, exhausted and relieved and uncertain about everything except the fact that the immediate danger had passed. "I should sleep," Elena said eventually. "Process all of this when I'm not running on adrenaline and fear." "Good idea." Marcus stood with her. "Elena?" "Yes?" "Thank you for trusting me with this, for letting me help, for giving me the chance to know him. You saved his life. Twice. That's more than thanks can cover." Marcus smiled, tired but genuine. "He's my son. There's no version of this where I wouldn't have." Elena went to bed with those words echoing in her mind. Tomorrow, they'd figure out the future. Tonight, she just let herself feel safe. For the first time in 8 years, the feeling almost seemed real. The morning after brought something Elena hadn't experienced in years: the absence of fear. She woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the distant sound of Adrian's laughter echoing from somewhere in the house. For the first time since the school had called about his collapse, she didn't wake up bracing for the next crisis. The threat was gone. Adrian was healing. They were safe. The realization should have been euphoric. Instead, it left her untethered, like she'd been running so long she'd forgotten how to stand still. Elena found them in the kitchen. Adrian was perched on a stool at the counter, drawing on a sketch pad, while Marcus made what appeared to be an elaborate breakfast. Pancakes, eggs, bacon arranged with more care than seemed strictly necessary. "You cook?" Elena asked from the doorway. Marcus glanced up, spatula in hand. "Occasionally, when the situation warrants it." He flipped a pancake with practiced ease. "Adrian requested celebration pancakes. I'm delivering celebration pancakes." "What are we celebrating?" "Everything," Adrian announced without looking up from his drawing. "Dad says the bad stuff is over, and we can celebrate being okay now." Dad. The word had become so natural over the past week that Adrian used it without thought. Elena's throat tightened. "That sounds like a good reason to celebrate," she managed. Marcus caught her eye, something questioning in his expression. She nodded slightly. They'd tell Adrian the details eventually, age-appropriate versions of the truth. But for now, let him think the bad stuff had simply ended on its own. Let him be 8 years old for a little while longer. Breakfast was chaotic and loud and perfect. Adrian talked non-stop about the space station he was building in his room, about the video game he wanted to try next, about whether astronauts got to eat pancakes in space. Marcus answered every question with patience Elena was still getting used to, occasionally glancing at her like he was checking to make sure this was okay, that he wasn't overstepping invisible boundaries. She smiled reassurance and tried to ignore the voice asking what happened when the celebration ended and they had to figure out real life. After breakfast, Dr. Reeves made her final house call. She examined Adrian thoroughly, ran blood work with the portable lab setup, and delivered the news Elena had been hoping for. "His recovery is exceptional. The engraftment is complete. His immune system is rebuilding beautifully. Dr. Reeves smiled at Adrian. Medically speaking, you're cleared for normal activities, no more restrictions. I can go swimming, Adrian asked immediately. You can go swimming. And back to school? Dr. Reeves glanced at Elena and Marcus. Physically, yes. He's strong enough. The rest is up to you. After she left, Adrian disappeared upstairs to add swimming pools to his space station design, leaving Elena and Marcus alone with the question they'd been avoiding. We need to talk about what happens next, Marcus said quietly. I know. They migrated to the office where Marcus had spent countless hours tracking down Sofia Castellano. The computer screens were dark now, crisis averted, leaving just two people trying to navigate an impossible situation. Adrian can't go back to his old school, Marcus began. Too many people know his face, his routine. Even with the immediate threat gone, I can't risk someone else deciding he's useful leverage. So what are you suggesting? He stays locked in this house forever? Marcus, I know what he needs, friends, education, a normal childhood. Marcus leaned against his desk. I have resources. I can arrange for private tutors, security-vetted playmates, a life that looks normal even if it has protections built in. A gilded cage. A safe cage. There's a difference. Elena moved to the window, looked out over grounds that resembled paradise but functioned as a fortress. What about me? Do I stay in the cage too? You can do whatever you want. Go back to your job if that's important to you. I'll arrange security, make sure you're protected. He paused. Or you could work from here. I have connections. I could set up something that uses your skills without requiring you to be in a public building every day. You're trying to control everything. I'm trying to keep you both alive. Elena turned to face him. The threat is gone, Marcus. You said so yourself. Sofia Castellano is in exile. Her organization is dismantled. We don't need to live like prisoners anymore. One threat is gone, but Elena, the reality of who I am, what I do, that creates ongoing risk. People who want leverage against me, business rivals who see weakness in caring about something. I can minimize the danger, but I can't eliminate it completely. The words landed like stones. So this is forever? Adrian grows up with security details and vetted friends and a life built around managing threats that might never materialize. Or he grows up alive and safe, even if safe looks different than what you'd hoped for. They'd had this argument in different forms for days now. Elena wanted normal. Marcus wanted secure. Neither could give the other what they asked for without compromising everything they believed. I need air, Elena said abruptly. I need to think. She left before Marcus could respond, found her way to the gardens that surrounded the house like a beautiful lie. Paths wound through flowers arranged with geometric precision. A fountain burbled in the center, surrounded by benches positioned for contemplation. Elena sank onto one and tried to untangle the mess in her head. She'd spent 8 years believing distance was safety, that hiding was protection, that keeping Adrian away from Marcus's world would give him a better life. But Adrian had almost died anyway. The threats had found them despite all her careful construction of invisibility. And the only reason her son was alive was because she'd finally stopped running and asked for help from the man she'd been hiding from. Marcus had saved Adrian, had tracked down the threat, had offered protection and resources and a willingness to be involved in ways that terrified her because they meant admitting she couldn't do this alone. But accepting his help meant accepting his world. The security details, the constant awareness of danger, the knowledge that loving someone powerful meant becoming a target yourself. Was that fair to Adrian? Was any of this fair? Mom? Elena looked up. Adrian stood a few feet away, sketchpad tucked under his arm, looking uncertain. Hey, baby, what are you doing out here? Looking for you. You seem sad at breakfast. I'm not sad, just thinking. Adrian sat beside her on the bench, too perceptive for 8 years old. Is it because of Dad? What makes you say that? You guys keep having quiet conversations that stop when I come in, and sometimes you look at him like you're trying to solve a really hard math problem. Despite everything, Elena smiled. That's pretty accurate, actually. Do you not like him? The question was so direct, so earnest that lying felt impossible. It's complicated. I liked him very much once. Then things happened that made me leave. Now we're trying to figure out how to be in each other's lives for you. Adrian absorbed this with his characteristic seriousness. I like him. He's nice to me, and he makes you smile sometimes, even when you're trying not to. He does, doesn't he? Are you going to leave again? Take me away? The fear in Adrian's voice broke something in Elena's chest. Do you want to leave? No, I like it here. It's quiet and Dad is here and nobody is sick or scared. He paused. Is that okay? That I like being here? Elena pulled him close, kissed the top of his head. Of course it's okay. You can like whatever and whoever you want. Even if it makes things complicated? Even then. They sat together in the garden, mother and son, while Elena tried to reconcile what was best for Adrian with her own fear of commitment and vulnerability. Marcus found them 20 minutes later, approaching with the careful distance of someone unsure of their welcome. Can we talk? He asked Elena. Then to Adrian, you mind giving us a minute, buddy? I'm going to work on my space station anyway. It needs better defenses against alien attacks. He scampered off, energy fully restored, leaving them alone among the carefully arranged flowers. I'm sorry, Marcus said before Elena could speak, for pushing, for trying to control everything. You're right. The immediate threat is gone. I'm just scared, Elena finished. You're scared something else will happen and you won't be able to stop it. Yes. The admission surprised her. Marcus Volkov didn't do vulnerability easily. I'm scared too, she admitted. Of different things maybe, but scared nonetheless. Marcus sat beside her on the bench, maintaining careful distance. Tell me what you're afraid of. That Adrian grows up thinking security details and controlled environments are normal. That he never learns to trust people because we teach him everyone is a potential threat. That in trying to keep him safe, we steal his childhood. And I'm afraid he becomes a target because I care about him. That someone uses him to get to me. That my world destroys him the way it almost destroyed you. They sat with their competing fears, two people who'd loved each other once trying to find common ground in the wreckage of what they'd lost. What if we compromise? Elena said eventually. Not your way, not mine, something in between. I'm listening. Adrian needs structure, routine, normalcy. He can't go back to his old school, fine. But there are other schools, private ones with better security. Places where he can make friends and learn and be a kid without feeling like he's in a fortress. And you? I need space to figure out what I want, not just for Adrian, but for myself. I've spent 8 years in survival mode. I need time to remember who I am when I'm not running. Marcus nodded slowly. I can work with that. Private school. Security that's present but subtle. And you, take whatever time you need. I won't push. But you'll be in Adrian's life, regularly, not just visits, but actual presence. Yes, if that's acceptable. It's acceptable. Elena took a breath. More than acceptable. He needs you. I can see that now. Something shifted in Marcus's expression. Relief, maybe, or hope. And us? He asked quietly. What about us? I don't know yet. I need time to figure out if there's an us to rebuild or if we're just two people connected by our son. That's fair. But Marcus, I'm not running anymore. Whatever we figure out, I'm not disappearing again. Adrian deserves to know his father, and you deserve to know him. Marcus's hand found hers on the bench between them, not demanding, just there, offering connection if she wanted it. Elena didn't pull away. They sat like that for a long moment, holding hands in a garden designed for beauty rather than function, and tried to imagine what came next. The next 2 weeks brought strange normality. Marcus enrolled Adrian in a private academy 40 minutes away. Small classes, rigorous security protocols disguised as standard procedures, and enough wealthy families that protective details didn't raise eyebrows. Adrian thrived, made friends with the ease of children who didn't overthink social dynamics. Came home chattering about teachers and projects and the kid named Marcus, just like you, Dad, but he goes by Mark because there are 3 Marcuses in our grade. Isn't that weird? Elena found work remotely consulting for the hospital system Marcus had connections with. It used her administrative skills without requiring daily presence in a public building. The pay was better than her old job. The flexibility was worth more than the salary. They developed routines, breakfast together before school. Evenings where Marcus helped with homework while Elena prepared dinner. Weekends exploring the extensive grounds or driving to museums and parks that were thoroughly vetted before they arrived. It looked almost like a family. Almost. Elena still slept in her own room, still maintained careful distance from Marcus beyond the practical necessities of co-parenting, still hadn't decided if what they were building was permanent or just temporary stability while Adrian healed. Marcus didn't push, maintained his own careful distance, focused on Adrian with an intensity that suggested he was making up for lost time while trying not to overwhelm anyone. The tension between them was quieter now, but still present. Unresolved feelings wrapped in daily logistics and shared responsibility. "We can't keep avoiding this forever," Marcus said one evening after Adrian had gone to bed. They were in the kitchen cleaning up from dinner, moving around each other with practiced choreography. Avoiding what? Each other. The conversation about what happens long term, whether this is temporary or something more. Elena set down the dish she'd been drying. "I'm still figuring it out. It's been 2 weeks. 2 weeks after 8 years apart. That's not a long time, Marcus." "Well, I'm not trying to rush you, but Elena, I need to know if you're planning to stay or if you're just waiting for the right moment to leave again." The accusation stung because it wasn't entirely unfair. "I told you I wasn't running anymore." "You did, but you haven't committed to staying either. You're in limbo. We're all in limbo. And I don't know how long we can sustain this." Elena turned to face him fully. "What do you want from me? A decision right now about forever? A promise that I'll stay in this house and build a life in your world and pretend like the past 8 years didn't happen? I want honesty. I want to know if there's any possibility that we can be more than co-parents going through the motions. Because if there isn't, I need to know now. I need to adjust my expectations and figure out how to be Adrian's father without hoping for something that will never happen." The vulnerability in his voice cut through Elena's defensiveness. "I don't know," she said quietly. "I honestly don't know if we can be more than this. Too much has happened. Too much time has passed. We're different people now. So we figure out if the different versions of us can work together, but we can't do that if you keep me at arm's length. I'm not, you are. Physically, emotionally. You live here, but you're not present. You interact with me for Adrian's sake, but there's a wall between us that hasn't moved since the hospital." He was right. Elena had been so focused on protecting herself, on maintaining distance as insurance against future hurt, that she hadn't noticed how thoroughly she'd shut him out. "I'm afraid," she admitted, "of getting close again, of trusting you, of building something that could shatter if threats come back, or if your world intrudes, or if we realize we're just not compatible anymore." Marcus crossed the space between them, slow enough that she could stop him if she wanted. She didn't. He stopped close enough that she could feel his warmth but not touching, giving her space to decide. "I can't promise you there won't be threats. My world is complicated and sometimes dangerous, but I can promise I'll do everything in my power to protect you and Adrian. And I can promise that if you give us a real chance, I won't walk away when it gets hard. What if I'm the one who walks away? Then I'll let you go. But I'll fight like hell to give you reasons to stay." Elena studied his face, seeing past the control to the man underneath. The one who'd dropped everything to save a son he didn't know existed, who tracked down threats and eliminated them with ruthless efficiency, who made pancakes and helped with homework and looked at Adrian like he'd discovered something precious he'd thought was lost forever. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "How to trust again after everything." "Neither do I, but maybe we figure it out together." He offered his hand, not demanding, just offering. Elena looked at it for a long moment, weighing past hurt against present possibility. Then she took it. His fingers closed around hers, warm and certain, and something in her chest unclenched slightly. "We take it slow," she said. "No rushing, no grand gestures, just seeing if this can work. I can do slow. And honest, complete honesty. No more secrets about your work or threats or anything that affects us." "Agreed. Same goes for you. No more running when things get hard." "Deal." They stood in the kitchen holding hands like teenagers, uncertain and hopeful and terrified in equal measure. "So what now?" Elena asked. "Now we finish the dishes. Put on a movie. Sit on the same couch instead of opposite ends. See if we can tolerate each other's company for 2 hours." Despite everything, Elena laughed. That's your grand plan? A movie? I told you I'd take it slow. They finished cleaning up together, the silence more comfortable than it had been in weeks. Then migrated to the living room where Marcus queued up something that wasn't too violent or too romantic, just entertainment that didn't require heavy emotional investment. Elena sat on the couch. Marcus sat beside her, close but not crowding. Halfway through the movie, his arm moved to rest along the back of the couch behind her shoulders. She didn't pull away. By the end credits, she'd drifted closer, her head resting against his shoulder with the casual intimacy of people who'd done this 1,000 times before. It felt strange and familiar and terrifying and right all at once. Okay? Marcus asked quietly. Okay, Elena confirmed. It was the smallest step, but it was a step forward instead of away. Progress. The next morning, Adrian noticed the shift immediately. You guys are being weird, he announced over breakfast. Weird how? Elena asked. I don't know. Smiling at each other, standing closer, being less tense. Marcus and Elena exchanged glances. We're figuring things out, Marcus said carefully. Your mom and I. Trying to see if we can be friends again. Just friends? The question was too perceptive. Maybe more than friends, Elena admitted. Eventually. If we can make it work. Adrian considered this with his characteristic seriousness. Does that mean we'll stay here? Like, permanently? Would you want that? Elena asked. I like it here. I like having Dad around. I like my new school. He paused. I like not feeling like we're hiding anymore. The honesty in his voice settled something in Elena's chest. Then we'll stay, she said, for as long as it feels right. Adrian grinned, then returned to his pancakes like he hadn't just witnessed his parents taking the first real steps toward rebuilding something they'd thought was lost forever. That afternoon, Marcus had to leave for a business meeting in the city, the first time he'd left the property since the confrontation with Sofia Castellano. I'll be back by dinner, he told Adrian. Behave for your mom. I always behave. Sure you do. Marcus ruffled his hair, then turned to Elena. Security stays here. Sarah will be on site. If anything feels wrong, we'll call. We'll be fine. Go do your complicated business things. Marcus hesitated, and Elena saw the war in his expression. The need to protect versus the need to trust that they'd be safe without him hovering. She crossed to him, rose on her toes, and kissed his cheek. We'll be here when you get back, I promise. Something in his expression eased. Okay, I'll see you tonight. He left, and Elena watched the car disappear down the drive with Adrian beside her. You kissed him, Adrian observed. On the cheek, that's friendly. Mom, I'm 8, not stupid. You like him. Elena couldn't help but smile. Yeah, I'm starting to think I do. Good. He likes you too, I can tell. How? He looks at you the same way he looks at me, like you're important. Out of the mouths of children came truths adults spent years avoiding. Come on, Elena said, wrapping an arm around Adrian's shoulders. Let's go work on that space station. I think it needs better living quarters. They spent the afternoon building and talking and existing in the comfortable routine they'd developed. No threats, no fear, just a mother and son enjoying a quiet day while the father worked to maintain the world that kept them safe. Marcus returned at 6 with takeout from Adrian's favorite restaurant and stories about negotiations that went well. They ate together, the three of them, talking and laughing and building something that looked increasingly like a real family. After dinner, after Adrian had gone to bed, Elena found Marcus on the back patio looking out over the grounds. Penny for your thoughts? She asked, joining him. Just thinking about how different everything is from a month ago. Adrian was dying. You'd been hiding for 8 years. I didn't know I had a son. And now... He gestured at the house behind them. Now we're here. Regret any of it? Not for a second. You? Elena considered the question seriously. I regret the years you lost with Adrian. Regret the fear and running. But I can't regret the choices that kept him alive long enough to make it here. That's fair. They stood in comfortable silence, shoulder to shoulder, watching the sun set over property that had transformed from fortress to home in the span of weeks. Thank you, Marcus said eventually, for giving me another chance, for trusting me with Adrian, for staying. Thank you for not giving up, for finding us, for making this feel possible. Marcus's hand found hers in the growing dark. It is possible. We're proof of that. Elena squeezed his fingers and let herself believe him. The future was uncertain. There would be challenges, integrating their complicated histories, navigating Marcus's world, teaching Adrian to be safe without being afraid. But for the first time since she'd disappeared 8 years ago, Elena wasn't facing those challenges alone. She had Marcus. She had stability. She had the beginning of something that might become love again, given time and patience and willingness to trust. It was enough, more than enough. It was possibility. And possibility, Elena was learning, was the most powerful thing of all. 3 weeks after Marcus returned from his meeting, Elena woke to find the bed beside her occupied. She'd started sleeping in his room a week ago, small steps toward rebuilding intimacy, toward trusting that this wasn't temporary. Marcus had been patient, letting her set the pace, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. Now she watched him sleep in the early morning light and tried to remember why she'd been so afraid of this. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from Dr. Reeves with Adrian's latest blood work results. All normal, complete remission. The transplant had taken perfectly. Elena set the phone down and let relief wash over her again. It never got old, that feeling. Her son was healthy, alive, safe. Everything else they could figure out. Marcus stirred beside her, eyes opening slowly. "You're staring," he murmured. "I'm thinking." "About?" "How different everything is. How close we came to losing all of this." Marcus pulled her closer, wrapping an arm around her waist. "But we didn't lose it. We're here." "We're here," Elena agreed. They lay tangled together for a few more minutes before Adrian's voice echoed through the house, calling for breakfast with the impatience of 9-year-olds everywhere. His birthday had come and gone 2 weeks ago, celebrated with a party that included his new friends from school and enough security to protect a small nation, all disguised as concerned parents. Marcus had given him a telescope. Elena had given him books about space exploration. Adrian had declared it the best birthday ever and meant it with the earnestness only children possessed. Now he was 9, healthy, and demanding pancakes like it was his personal right. "Your turn," Elena said, nudging Marcus. "I made them yesterday." "Exactly. You're on a roll." Marcus groaned but rolled out of bed, pulling on clothes while Elena watched with appreciation she no longer bothered hiding. "You're still staring," he said without turning around. "You're still worth staring at." He turned, crossed back to the bed, and kissed her properly. Long and slow and full of promise. "Hold that thought," he murmured against her lips. "After breakfast. I'll be here." He left to handle pancake duty while Elena took a moment to appreciate the life that had assembled itself from chaos and fear and impossible choices. She found them in the kitchen 20 minutes later. Adrian was drawing on his ever-present sketchpad while Marcus navigated the complexities of breakfast preparation. They'd developed an easy rhythm, father and son, built from weeks of proximity and genuine affection. "Mom!" Adrian looked up. "Dad says we can go to the planetarium this weekend if you want. Can we, please?" "The planetarium sounds perfect. And after, can we get ice cream?" "We'll see." "That means yes," Adrian told Marcus confidently. She always says we'll see when the answer is yes. Marcus smiled, flipping pancakes with practiced ease. "Good to know." They ate together, the three of them, conversation flowing easily. Adrian talked about the science project he was working on, something involving model rockets that made Elena nervous, but Marcus enthusiastically encouraged. They discussed weekend plans, argued mildly about whether they should get a dog, and existed in the comfortable chaos of family breakfast. Elena's phone rang as they were clearing dishes. Unknown number. Her first instinct was still wariness, 8 years of running dying hard. Marcus noticed her hesitation. "Want me to answer it?" "No, I've got it." She picked up, bracing for whatever came next. "Miss Vale? This is Detective Morrison from the District Attorney's Office. I'm calling regarding the Sofia Castellano case." Elena's blood went cold. "I'm listening." "Ms. Castellano has been formally charged with multiple counts of attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and several other charges related to the attacks on you and your family. The trial is scheduled to begin in 6 weeks. We'll need you to testify." The room tilted slightly. "Testify? I thought—" She glanced at Marcus, who'd gone very still. I thought she left the country. She attempted to, was stopped at the airport with falsified documents. She's currently in custody awaiting trial. Detective Morrison's voice was professionally sympathetic. I understand this is difficult, but your testimony is crucial to securing a conviction. You were the primary target. We need you to tell the jury what happened. Elena sank into the nearest chair. Can I think about it? Of course. But Ms. Vale, I should be clear. We can subpoena you if necessary. This woman tried to kill you multiple times, tried to kill your son. We have evidence, but your testimony provides context and motive. It matters. I understand. Can I call you back? You have my number. Don't wait too long. The call ended. Elena sat staring at her phone while Marcus and Adrian watched with varying degrees of concern. What's wrong? Adrian asked. Nothing, baby. Adult stuff. Why don't you go work on your rocket project? I need to talk to your dad for a minute. Adrian looked between them, clearly unconvinced, but retreated upstairs with his sketchpad. The moment he was gone, Marcus spoke. Sophia's being prosecuted. You knew? I knew they'd arrested her. I didn't know about the trial. His expression was carefully neutral. Are you going to testify? I don't know. I don't want to. I don't want to relive everything, put it on public record, risk. Elena's voice cracked. I just want it to be over. Marcus crossed to her, knelt beside her chair so they were eye level. It won't be over until there's accountability, until she faces real consequences for what she did. She's in jail. Isn't that consequence enough? Only if she stays there. But Elena, if you don't testify, if the prosecution's case is weak, she could walk, could come after us again, could hurt someone else. Elena closed her eyes, trying to breathe through the panic constricting her chest. I can't do this. I can't go into a courtroom and talk about the threats, the fire, the bomb. I can't. You can. And I'll be there with you, every second. You won't be alone. What about Adrian? What if testifying puts him at risk? What if her supporters... I'll make sure he's protected. Triple security, safe location during the trial. Whatever it takes. Elena wanted to refuse, wanted to hide again, retreat into the safety they'd so carefully constructed. But Marcus was right. Running hadn't solved anything before. It wouldn't solve anything now. Okay, she whispered. I'll testify. Marcus pulled her into his arms, held her while she shook with fear and anger and the weight of choices that kept demanding more than she wanted to give. We'll get through this, he promised. Together. Elena let herself believe him because the alternative was unbearable. The next 6 weeks blurred together in preparation and anxiety. The district attorney's office contacted Elena multiple times, preparing her testimony, explaining procedures, warning her about defense tactics designed to discredit victims and create reasonable doubt. Marcus mobilized resources, arranged security that was thorough without being suffocating, ensured Adrian remained insulated from the worst of it. Adrian knew something was happening. His parents were tense, there were more whispered conversations. Strangers came to the house for meetings, but they kept the details vague. Just adult problems, nothing for him to worry about. Everything would be fine. Elena practiced her testimony until she could recite it without breaking. The threats, the fire, the hospital bombing, everything Sofia Castellano had orchestrated in service of obsession and wounded pride. She met with the prosecutor, a sharp woman named Jennifer Chen, who promised to make the case airtight. The evidence is strong, Jennifer assured her. Financial records, communications, testimony from the operative she hired. But your story, what she put you through, why she did it, that's what makes this real for a jury. That's what gets convictions. And if I fall apart on the stand, then you fall apart. Juries understand trauma. They understand fear. What they won't understand is if you don't show up at all. Elena nodded and tried to prepare for the hardest performance of her life. The trial began on a Tuesday that felt like any other until it didn't. Marcus drove them to the courthouse, security following in a separate vehicle. Adrian stayed at the house with Sarah and a team that could repel a small army. He'd hugged Elena extra tight that morning, sensing her fear even if he didn't understand the source. You'll do great, Mom, he'd said with the confidence of children who believed their parents were invincible. Elena had kissed his forehead and tried to believe it too. The courthouse was chaos. Media, protesters, curious onlookers drawn by the spectacle of a wealthy woman on trial for attempted murder. Marcus guided her through the crowd with the practiced ease of someone used to navigating hostile environments. Inside, the atmosphere shifted, quieter, more controlled, but no less intimidating. Elena saw Sofia Castellano for the first time across the courtroom. Elegant in expensive clothes, hair perfectly styled, looking like she was attending a society function rather than facing life in prison. Their eyes met. Sofia smiled, cold and satisfied, like she'd already won something Elena didn't understand. Marcus's hand found hers under the table where they sat. "Don't look at her. Look at me." Elena forced her gaze away, focused on Marcus's steady presence. "I can't do this." "Yes, you can. Because she tried to kill our son, and she needs to answer for that." The reminder steadied her. Adrian. This was for Adrian, for the life he deserved without looking over his shoulder. The trial proceeded with agonizing slowness. Opening statements, evidence presentation, expert witnesses explaining financial records and digital communications. Elena testified on the fourth day. Jennifer Chen guided her through the story with gentle precision. The threats, Marcus's proposal, the pregnancy, the decision to run. "Why didn't you go to the police?" Jennifer asked. "Because my neighbor died in a fire meant for me. Because Sofia's threats showed she could get to anyone, anywhere. Because I was pregnant and terrified, and I thought disappearing was the only way to keep my baby safe." "And did it work? Did disappearing keep you safe?" "For 8 years, yes. Until my son got sick and I had to contact his father for help. Then she found us again." "What happened when she found you?" Elena detailed the hospital attacks, the cafeteria confrontation, the bomb in Adrian's ICU room. "What went through your mind when you discovered the bomb?" Elena's voice shook. That I'd failed. That after 8 years of running, of trying to protect him, he was going to die anyway because I'd been stupid enough to think distance was protection. "But he didn't die." "No, security evacuated us in time. But he could have. People could have died. All because Sofia Castellano decided she'd rather kill an 8-year-old child than accept that Marcus Volkov didn't want to be with her." The defense attorney objected. The judge sustained it. But the words were out, hanging in the courtroom for the jury to absorb. Cross-examination was brutal. The defense attorney, a man named Richard Stein, who wore expensive suits and condescension like armor, tried to paint Elena as an opportunist who'd trapped Marcus with a pregnancy, then disappeared to manipulate him for money. "Isn't it true you demanded significant financial support when you contacted Mr. Volkov about your son's illness?" "No. I contacted him because Adrian needed a bone marrow donor and Marcus was the biological father. I didn't ask for money." "But you accepted it. Accepted his protection, moved into his home. Seems convenient, doesn't it?" "My son was dying. I would have accepted help from anyone who could save him." "Including inventing a story about threats from my client to justify your abandonment?" Jennifer objected. The judge agreed, but the insinuation lingered. Stein pressed harder, trying to break her composure, suggest she was lying or exaggerating or complicit in some elaborate scheme. Elena held steady, remembering Jennifer's coaching. "Answer the question. Don't get defensive. Let the evidence speak." When it was finally over, when she was dismissed from the stand, Elena's legs barely carried her back to her seat. Marcus wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "You did perfectly," he whispered. "I feel like I'm going to be sick." "Breathe, it's over. You're done." The trial continued for another week. More witnesses, more evidence. The operatives Sofia had hired testifying in exchange for reduced sentences. The paper trail that connected money to orders to attacks. The defense tried to create doubt, suggest the evidence was circumstantial, that Sofia was being framed by business rivals. But the prosecution's case was thorough, methodical, devastating. On the 9th day, both sides rested. Closing arguments took half a day. Then the jury deliberated. Elena and Marcus waited in a private room the court had provided, away from media and spectators. Hours crawled past. Every time Elena's phone buzzed, her heart stopped. "How long does deliberation usually take?" she asked for the third time. "As long as it takes. Try not to read into the timing. If they're taking this long, maybe they're split. Maybe they don't believe. Elena, stop. We did everything we could. The rest is out of our hands. She knew he was right. Didn't make the waiting easier. They were on hour 6 when Jennifer Chen appeared in the doorway. They have a verdict. Elena's stomach dropped. Already? 6 hours isn't fast or slow. It just is. Come on, let's hear what they decided. The courtroom was packed when they returned. Media, supporters, the curious, and the invested. Sophia sat at the defense table, expression unreadable. The jury filed in. Elena searched their faces for clues but found nothing. The judge asked the standard questions. Had they reached a verdict? Yes. On all counts? Yes. On the charge of attempted murder in the first degree regarding Elena Moravsky, how do you find? Guilty. The word landed like thunder. On the charge of attempted murder in the first degree regarding Adrian Vale? Guilty. Count after count. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Sophia's expression finally cracked. Not fear, rage. Pure crystalline rage directed at Elena across the courtroom. Marcus's hand tightened on Elena's. It's over, he murmured. It's really over. The judge thanked the jury, set a sentencing date for 2 weeks out, and dismissed the court. Elena sat frozen while the courtroom erupted around her. Media rushing for statements, Sophia being led away in handcuffs, Jennifer Chen approaching with congratulations and relief written across her face. We got her, Jennifer said. All counts. She's going away for a long time. How long? Minimum 25 years. Likely more with the aggravating factors. She won't hurt you again. But 25 years, Adrian would be 34, a grown man. The threats that had defined Elena's adult life would be gone, locked away behind bars and legal consequences. Marcus pulled her up, wrapped her in his arms right there in the courtroom. It's done, he said again. You're safe. Adrian's safe. We can actually live now. Elena buried her face in his shoulder and let herself cry. Relief, exhaustion. The release of 8 years of fear finally draining away. When she could breathe again, Marcus guided her out of the courthouse through a side entrance that avoided the media chaos. Into the car. Away from the spectacle. They drove in silence for a while, both processing what had just happened. I want to see Adrian, Elena said finally. I want to tell him it's really over. Then let's go home. Home. Not the safe house, not the fortress. Home. They found Adrian in the backyard with Sarah, launching model rockets with an enthusiasm that suggested he'd been waiting for this all day. Mom, Dad, watch this one. It's going to go so high. He launched it, and the rocket soared into the clear sky, climbing higher and higher before deploying its parachute and drifting back to Earth. Did you see? Did you see how high it went? I saw, Elena said, pulling him into a hug that probably confused him, but he tolerated anyway. It was amazing. So how was your thing, the adult problem you had to deal with? Marcus crouched to Adrian's level. It's solved, completely, no more problems. Really? Like, really, really? Really, really, Elena confirmed. Everything is okay now. Better than okay. Adrian processed this with his characteristic seriousness. Does that mean we can get a dog now? Despite everything, Elena laughed. We'll talk about it. That means yes, Adrian told Marcus again. I'm learning that, Marcus agreed. That night, after Adrian was asleep, Elena and Marcus sat on the back patio under stars that seemed brighter than they had any right to be. What happens now? Elena asked. Whatever we want. The threat is gone. Sophia will be sentenced in 2 weeks, then she disappears into the system for the next several decades. We're free. Free. The word felt foreign and wonderful. I think I want to expand my consulting work, maybe build something bigger, use my experience to help other hospitals improve their systems. I think that's an excellent idea. I can help with connections if you want them. I want them. Marcus pulled her closer, and she went willingly. What about us? She asked. What do we want this to be? What do you want it to be? Elena thought about the past months, the fear and chaos and gradual building of trust. The way Marcus had shown up for Adrian, for her, without hesitation or condition. The life they'd constructed from impossible circumstances. I want permanent, she said. I want to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. I want to believe this is real and sustainable and ours. Then that's what we build. Permanent, real, ours. Just like that? Just like that. Marcus turned to face her fully. Elena, I loved you 8 years ago. I never stopped. And these past months, getting to know you again, getting to know our son, building this life, I want it permanently. I want you. I want us. However that looks, whatever form it takes. Even though I ran, even though I kept Adrian from you, you did what you thought was right to protect him. I can't fault you for that, even if I wish it had been different. But we're here now. We have a second chance. I don't want to waste it dwelling on what we lost when we could be focusing on what we're building. Elena kissed him, soft and certain. Then let's build it, all of it, the complicated, messy, beautiful life. Together? Together. They sat under the stars holding each other and planned futures that felt possible for the first time in 8 years. 2 weeks later, Sofia Castellano was sentenced to 30 years in prison without possibility of parole. The judge cited the calculated nature of her crimes, the targeting of a child, and the complete lack of remorse. Elena didn't attend the sentencing. She'd said everything she needed to say at trial. Now she was focused on moving forward. Marcus handled the necessary legal aftermath, civil suits, asset recovery, ensuring Sofia's ability to cause harm was completely eliminated, and Elena focused on their son and the life they were building. Adrian thrived. His health remained perfect. The transplant, a complete success. He excelled at his new school, made friends easily, and developed an obsession with astrophysics that Marcus encouraged with books and equipment and plans for a summer trip to an observatory. They got the dog, a rescue mutt named Cosmos that Adrian adored and that followed him everywhere with devoted loyalty. Elena's consulting business grew beyond her expectations. Marcus's connections helped, but her skills and dedication carried her further. Within months, she was advising hospitals across 3 states, improving systems, saving lives in ways that felt meaningful. And she and Marcus rebuilt what they'd lost, slowly but surely. They married quietly 6 months after the trial. Small ceremony, just the 3 of them, and a handful of close friends. Adrian served as best man, taking the role with a seriousness that made everyone smile. "Do you take this woman to be your wife?" the officiant asked Marcus. "I do. Again. Finally. And do you take this man to be your husband?" Elena looked at Marcus, at Adrian standing beside him grinning, at the life they'd fought so hard to build. "I do." The kiss was sweet and certain and full of promises they'd actually keep this time. Adrian cheered, Cosmos barked, and Elena Moravsky-Volkov started the next chapter of her life, standing beside the man she loved instead of running from shadows. The reception was small and perfect. Dancing in the garden. Cake that Adrian declared the best he'd ever tasted. Toasts from the few people they'd invited who understood what it meant that they were here, together, alive and whole. Marcus pulled Elena onto the makeshift dance floor as the sun set. "Happy?" he asked. "Incredibly. You?" "More than I thought possible." They swayed together while Adrian danced with Sarah, and Cosmos investigated the catering table, and the world kept spinning without immediate threats or looming danger. "Thank you," Elena said quietly. "For what?" "For not giving up, for finding us, for saving Adrian, for giving me a second chance. Thank you for running when you had to, for protecting him when I couldn't, for trusting me enough to stay." They kissed again, long and slow, while their son made exaggerated gagging noises and their friends laughed. Perfect. Months became years. Adrian grew taller, smarter, more confident. He excelled in school, pursued his passion for space with the kind of focus that suggested he might actually become an astronaut someday. He had friends, hobbies, a life that was normal and safe and full. He knew the truth about his early years, age-appropriate versions that explained why his parents hadn't been together, why they'd had to be careful, what his mother had done to protect him. He understood it made his family different, but not less, just theirs. Elena's business became a full consultancy firm. She hired staff, took on partners, made real impact in healthcare systems that had been broken before she arrived. The work was fulfilling in ways her old administrative job had never been. Marcus gradually shifted his business dealings toward legitimate enterprises. He maintained connections and influence, but the darker aspects of his world receded. He focused on building something Adrian could be proud of instead of something that required constant damage control. They bought a house in the city, smaller than the fortress, but theirs. A place where Adrian could bike to friends' houses and Elena could work from a home office, and Marcus could pretend to be a normal businessman instead of someone who'd once solved problems through force and intimidation. Security remained, subtle, professional, non-intrusive but present. Some habits died hard. Some threats, while diminished, never fully disappeared. But they were threats managed, not threats that controlled their lives. On Adrian's 13th birthday, Marcus gave him another telescope. Bigger, more powerful, capable of seeing galaxies instead of just planets. Whoa, Adrian breathed, examining the equipment with reverence. This is incredible. You've earned it. Straight A's, science fair winner, future astrophysicist. I haven't decided if I want astrophysics or aerospace engineering yet. You have time to choose. They set up the telescope in the backyard that night, all three of them taking turns looking at stars and nebulae and distant worlds. That's Andromeda, Adrian said, adjusting the focus. It's 2.5 million light years away. The light we're seeing left that galaxy before humans existed. That's humbling, Elena said. It's amazing, Adrian corrected. Everything we can see is just a tiny fraction of what's out there. The universe is so big, and we're so small, but we're here, looking at it, trying to understand it. That matters. Marcus and Elena exchanged glances over their son's head. He'd grown up thoughtful, curious, unafraid of big questions or complex truths. He'd grown up loved, safe, whole, everything they'd fought for. Later, after Adrian had gone to bed still talking about galaxies and cosmic significance, Elena found Marcus on the patio where they'd spent so many nights planning and hoping and building. "Thank you," she said, settling beside him. "You keep thanking me. At some point, we should call it even." "Never. You saved our son's life. I'll be thanking you forever." "You carried him for 9 months, raised him for 8 years, protected him from threats I didn't know existed. I think we're more than even." Elena leaned against him, comfortable and certain. "Do you ever think about how it could have gone differently? If I hadn't called you? If the transplant hadn't worked? If Sophia had succeeded?" "Sometimes. Late at night when I can't sleep. But then I remember we're here. He's here. Healthy and brilliant and ours. The what-ifs don't matter as much as the what is. The what is pretty good. The what is everything." They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars that Adrian could now name and explain, and felt the weight of the journey that had brought them here. 8 years of running, weeks of crisis, months of rebuilding, years of steady growth into something permanent and real. "I love you," Elena said. Simple. True. "I love you too. Both of you. More than I have words for." "You could try." Marcus pulled her closer, kissed her temple. "You're my second chance, my redemption, the proof that some things lost can be found again. Adrian is my legacy, my future, the best parts of both of us combined. And this," he gestured at the house, the yard, the life they'd built. "This is what I fought for without knowing it existed. A real family, a home, something worth protecting that doesn't require weapons or threats, just presence and commitment and love." That was pretty good. For someone without words, I've had practice. They stayed outside long after the temperature dropped, wrapped in each other and the certainty that they'd fought their way through impossible circumstances to arrive at exactly where they were meant to be. Together. Safe. Home. The past couldn't be erased. The scars remained, Elena's years of fear, Marcus's lost time with Adrian, the violence that had shadowed their reunion. But scars were just evidence of survival. And they had survived. More than survived. They had built something beautiful from the wreckage of what had been destroyed. Inside, Adrian slept peacefully, dreaming of distant galaxies and futures where anything seemed possible. Outside, his parents held each other under stars that had witnessed everything and judged nothing. And in the quiet dark, Elena finally let go of the last remnants of fear that had driven her for so long. She wasn't running anymore. She was home. And home, she'd learned, wasn't a place. It was the people beside you when the world tried to break you. It was the hand that held yours through the darkness. It was the child who grew up knowing he was loved fiercely by parents who'd fought heaven and earth to keep him safe. It was Marcus's steady heartbeat beneath her ear. Adrian's laughter echoing through rooms that had once been a fortress, but now were just rooms. Cosmos's gentle snoring from wherever he'd decided to sleep tonight. The ordinary, beautiful, hard-won life they'd built together. Home was all of it. And it was enough. More than enough. It was everything they'd needed all along. The stars kept shining, the world kept turning, and the Volkov family, Marcus, Elena, and Adrian, kept building their future one day at a time together. No more running, no more hiding, just presence, partnership, and the profound peace that came from finally standing still.